We're getting shot at all the time. Why did who decided to put us here?
Yeah.
And who decided to put the camp here? And who decided that this was a really good idea to move the main hospital off the airfield up to the embassy, which is in the middle of the city?
Hey everyone, welcome to Church Burnout. I'm Roger.
And I'm Dan.
We have a special in-studio guest today.
We do indeed.
He traveled a pretty significant way to come see us, so we're jazzed about that.
Yes.
Jazzed.
Jazzed.
Maybe even jazz hands.
Let's not get too far.
Okay, a little too much. Air Force veteran Jim Lorraine.
Jim, how are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Driving all the way up from Augusta.
Yeah, you're welcome. Easy drive.
We do appreciate it.
We
always.
You made it through Robeson County. Very good.
I did.
We always appreciate it when guests come to the studio. Not that we don't enjoy our virtual conversations, but it's always, in my opinion, better in person.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good to meet you.
Yeah. We are certainly glad to have you. So, does your family have a history of service?
We have a long history of service. I'm a Central New York kid who lives in Aiken, South Carolina, and I have a beautiful sword in this cabinet, and the sword is a cavalry sword from Gettysburg.
Ooh.
And it's a great uncle who was killed. Was buried there. It was his sword. It resided in my aunt's closet, in the back of the closet for years, and I got it out, and I was like, we can't do this, right? So I have a nice thing. Anyways, it's a long way of saying that it depends on who comes to visit our house, and they'll ask, what about the sword? And I'll say, if they're a good Southern person, I'll say, yeah, this sword is just a military sword.
Good Southern person is redundant, but
if they're from the North, I'll give them the history of the sword. But I mean, yeah. So back that far. But I mean, more recently, my dad was one of 6 boys who all served in World War II.
Oh wow!
They all went. They all came back, varying service. So the oldest was in the Army, Guadalcanal. The second oldest was an armor with Patton going through Europe. My dad is the third. He was Navy, served in the Pacific. His brother was Army Air Corps. His next younger brother was Coast Guard, and the last brother was Army engineer. So it was pretty wild. We have this great photo of them, all 6 of them in their uniforms.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all individuals. They're all individual. They were all never together, but yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
What about your siblings?
So my sister, I'll go back. My oldest sister, her husband served a career in the Air Force. He was in Vietnam when I was growing up, so real impressionable time for me. He was in Vietnam for about 2 years, I think, 1.5 years. And then my next older sister, who's younger, she was an Air Force flight nurse in the reserve, and her husband was he retired as the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations.
Oh, wow.
So lots of history there. And I graduated, you can look at my age, I graduated from high school in 1980. So in the 80s, the unemployment rate was through the roof. My dad's business had not done well, and my mother said, "You're going to be a nurse," and I was like, "Yes, ma'am." And so I went to nursing school with the goal of completing 4 years and then becoming an officer in the military, not necessarily just the Air Force, but in the military. And anyways, that's our family history. Lots of military connections. How
much did your father and your uncles talk about their service?
They talked you'd get them together in the Adirondacks. They talk a lot.
They would speak to each other about it.
Yeah, you'd be around. They would talk to each other, but you'd be around. Always about the guys they were with and the positive sides of things. There was a few times I went hunting with my dad's closest brother, who was the armor guy and with tank guy, and I heard a little bit more about it. Had some idea. Everybody hunted. So we would when the family would go hunting, it was mostly the guys. You'd hear a little bit more. Yeah, but when it was mixed company, it was definitely the good times. Yeah.
Don't need to burden the ladies with that sort of talk.
Well, I think it worried I know my mom. Yeah. My dad had been he was in the Navy. He was a teletype operator, a teletype repair person.
Mm-hmm.
So he moved from ship to ship to ship.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and just had there were ships that were sunk, and the lore is that his name got out, and the captains were like, "We don't want him on my boat." yeah. But he was stationed in Guam, and if you would talk to my dad, he was in the car business for 35, 40 years. Talk to my dad, and he served in the Navy for about 3. You'd think that he did 40 years in the Navy and 3 years in the car business, without a doubt. If as soon as he met somebody, he was the guy wearing the Navy hat and
with all the veteran pins.
With all the Pacific War.
If I was in Guadalcanal, I'd be getting free beers for
Yeah,
my
no
life
kidding.
too.
Well, that was my uncle.
Well, I just mean all of them.
Yeah, all of them. But but there were stories, and it really wasn't. It wasn't so much that drove me to serve in the military. It was really the sense of service. They were always about service. It's about the country. It's about your service. You need to serve. That, for me, going in the military, that combined with so much financial insecurity growing up, especially in my later years in high school, I was like, you mean you're going to pay me every 2 weeks? And I don't have to, every 2 weeks. Yep.
Room, board, pay.
They'll even give you shoes.
Yeah, it was way before the GI Bill, right? Anyways, there's another story about that I'm happy to share with it, because I'm a Veep. I'm the bridge between the old Montgomery GI Bill and this Veep thing, and then there was nothing. It was
And then the post 9/11.
Well, I didn't even. Yeah, and then the post 9/11. Later, I retired in 2005, and the post 9/11 GI Bill wasn't passed until 2009, and so I had been. Anyways, while I was on active duty, I politicked. I had missed a window because of a deployment. I had missed a window to change my Veep to another thing, and they were like, "Nope, sorry, you missed it. You have $25 in your account." I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" I almost had zero access to services, and afterwards, it was like, "Well, were you going to use your GI Bill to go to school?" I said, "I don't have a GI Bill. I don't have really anything." And then when it passed, I went, "I'm going to school," and then I got my head down in work. 15 years later, I'd never used my GI Bill, and it's gone. Yeah. Anyways, so I didn't join for the GI Bill. I joined predominantly because of service.
So tell us about your commissioning pathway. You said you were a nurse, which obviously means you have a 4-year degree at least.
I have a wild pathway.
Yeah.
So I had graduated from a 2-year nursing program. So I had a degree in nursing. I had my license in nursing, or I was about to get my license in nursing. And I was in a car accident. I had been talking to the Air Force Reserve recruiter about joining the reserves. He was very active in it, and I was in a car accident. And during the car accident, I amputated my left foot, and then I had it reattached. And I told my family, don't talk to the recruiter if he calls. This is all before pre-caller ID or anything. I said, just say he's not here. Click. So I did that. I went through my recovery. I went on to Syracuse University to go to school to finish up, to get a 4-year degree. My whole goal was I need to get physically fit so I can serve in the military. And I had a great physical therapist who worked with me, and she said, "What's your goal?" I said, "I want to serve in the military." And she went and did all the research on MEPS, and she did everything that she needed to do to understand what the standard was that I needed to meet was. In the meantime, as I was getting more and more healthy, and I hadn't graduated with my 4-year degree yet, the reserves called me, and I was feeling pretty good. It was the summer in Central New York, which is rare.
Very,
so it's warm,
very, very short.
low humidity.
Oh, it's that 3-week summer that y'all get?
Yeah. And so they called me, and they said, "Are you still interested in serving?" And I said, "Sure." So I went out. The Air Force Reserve Unit was a medical unit, and they were looking for nurses. And swear to God, if I had, all I needed to do is take the required numbers of breath every month, and they would. So I went through their physical, I went through the assessment, and they recruited me with a year and a half after amputation of my foot. And so then I served in the reserves, met all their criteria. They had gone to in the snow. My cycle, because when I came in, my cycle on doing physical training was in the winter. So my PT thing was a bike. I could bike the heck out of things.
Oh, the Air Force.
So you received your commission through the reserves?
Through the reserves, yeah, as a 2-year degree nurse.
Okay. That is interesting then.
It was back.
That's not typical.
No. It was 1983.
Yeah.
And the Air Force Reserve was so short on nurses. They had made a program that if you were a 2-year degree nurse, you could assess into the Air Force. I didn't go to basic training.
No,
I didn't go to
OCS, none of that.
None of that.
Yeah, I'll say that's unusual. Maybe not so much in the early 80s.
Yeah, well, I was at Griffiths Air Force Base, and in a reserve unit there, and they said, "Here, you're going to go with Captain so and so down to the clothing sales, and you're going to buy your uniforms." And she was like, "Okay, you need this, you need this, you need this," and I had no idea. I had no clue.
Is that the old Air Force Base that was outside Utica?
Yeah. Big with B-52s were there.
Yeah.
SAC base.
They closed.
The
They closed
band
that
or the aircraft?
long time ago.
What's that?
The band or the aircraft?
The aircraft.
Okay.
The Buffs. So what happened was we went to the clothing sales, and I bought my uniform, and everything that I bought was female, because she knew what we needed, but she didn't realize that there was a female insignias and male insignias. Yeah, I looked pretty funny for a little while, and then I came back. I was like, well, anyways, the rest of the story is during that I caught a hop on a military jet from Griffiths to Andrews, and when I got off the bird in Andrews, my sister met me, and she said, "That doesn't look right." And then we walked into the passenger terminal, and this guy this major came up, and he said, "Lieutenant, come with me for a second." And he said, "You're wearing women's clothes." And I was like, "Oh my God!" And I said, "Let me tell you the story." And he's pointing out what it is. And I said to my sister, "Take me to clothing sales." We go to clothing sales. I said, "Make this," and I walked into clothing sales, and they went, "Oh my gosh!" And then they took everything.
Say
off.
no more.
So anyway, so that was my my reserve time.
It was hazing.
It was. I swear that I went back to the captain, and I said, "You did that on purpose." She said, "Swear to God, I had no idea." But in the end,
just out of curiosity,
yeah.
How long between the time that you got the uniform, to the time that you went to Andrews and it was pointed out to you?
2 months, but it was my service dress, because you had to, back in the day when you flew Space A, you had to wear your service dress to fly. So it was my service dress. My BDUs were fine, and then Air Force nurses wear actually Navy whites as their uniform, and the only thing that's Air Force is your flight cap. But the bars, the difference between the bars of a woman's flight cap and the bars of a male's flight cap are
size?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Size matters on that case. So, you could really it was really easy to see. So I'm in my service dress. The other thing that was that the commander for SAC, it was his aircraft that I got on at Griffiths with him. Didn't say a word.
You know, the senior officers.
Oh yeah,
They don't
yeah,
know.
Yeah. So anyway, so
He's
my-
had people doing his uniform for him for 10 years
Yeah.
at that point. Yeah.
So I when I joined the so then I went through Syracuse. I was weighing whether I should go into the Navy or whether I should stay in the Air Force, because I was going to go active duty. By that time, my ankle had healed up pretty good. I was able to run. I look like I run like a duck, but I was able to run a little bit. My dad was like, Navy, 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 and I thought, no, I gotta stay. I'm gonna stay Air Force. I want to be a flight nurse, and I went to MEPS, and then realized that I went through MEPS and I absolutely failed my color vision test. Absolutely failed it. Hard failed it to the point where the person doing the testing was like, they went through it and I didn't see a single number, and they call their friends and they go, come on over here, look at this, here, do that again, and they're using me as an example, and I
It's
I was
never
like,
good when the medical professionals call their friends over.
yeah. So I got through MEPS, and then from there, after graduation, went to Wichita Falls to it was called MIMSO, Medical.
It's Texas.
Yeah, Wichita Falls, Texas. MIMSO is a medical indoctrination for medical service officers. So it's literally nurses, docs. So you're in this room, and my roommate was a brand new doc who was an 04. He came in as an 04. His uniform looked worse than mine back in the day, but I was a pro on the uniforms. I knew
By
it.
that point.
By that point,
He had
I knew
scar
it.
tissue at that point.
I know, so to speak.
What year was this that you went out to Wichita?
85.
85?
Yeah, yeah. We were just talking earlier. I've been retired. What year did you come in?
I commissioned in 04.
Yeah. When did you come into the military?
98.
I retired in 05.
Yeah.
So 85 I came in active duty, and then went to MIMSO, and then my first duty station was Keesler, down in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Biloxi, okay.
When you decided to stick with the Air Force
Yeah.
after your dad pounding so hard
Hated
for the
me.
Navy.
I was so mad.
Why?
He was Navy through and through. The one saving, he never saw me when I was at Griffiths, but when he came down to visit me at Keesler, again, white uniform, white shoes. I looked, if I didn't have my flight cap on, I'd look just like Navy. My dad goes, and he met me and he said, I thought you joined the Air Force. I said, actually, Dad, I did, but this is the uniform that they wear, and that we wear, and still broke his heart. But I'll come back to it. There's a circle back on this one. I get him back. So I went to Keesler. So you served up in upstate New York, or up in northern New York. I had no idea where Biloxi, Mississippi was. I didn't know where Keesler was. It was probably one of the best assignments we had. My wife and I got married out of college, and we went to Keesler and got a little base house, and it's living large.
It's a little different.
It's a lot different. It was pre. So it was. If you guys have been down to Biloxi, there's casinos there, and there was pre-casinos. It was after Hurricane Camille, which was the big hurricane at the time that went through Biloxi and basically wiped it out. So it was. There was nothing. There were a lot of empty lots, and there was no casinos. But it was truly the South. And we made probably some of the best friends lifelong friends there. Loved it. It was a medical center, which was really important for my career. I focused on heart. That was really my specialty. From the coronary care unit to it was pre-transplant days, but I mean, really intensive care stuff that was happening at the hospital. And I was building my skills up. I was really comfortable with mechanical, like running a ventilator and taking care of patients who were in the worst case you could think of.
When you were out with the rest of the medical professionals out in Wichita Falls,
Yeah.
Is that where they assign, like when you're done with that, is that where they assign your specialty field?
Yeah.
No, because I was a nurse.
Okay,
I was a nurse.
So if you're a
anyways.
nurse, you're almost like a general practitioner.
Yeah, you're a nurse.
Yeah.
And then I knew when I left Syracuse, I knew that I was going to end state was Keesler.
Okay.
And I just had to go to. I went out to Wichita Falls and then drove down. But when I arrived, I ended up on a med surg unit, a medical surgical ward, which is where all new people came in. I learned what the term lump meant by the staff sergeant that was the NCO of the floor. You're the lieutenant under my protection. And
Yeah.
and
As long as
I
you're
have-
not a cancerous lump.
I was like, you gotta
never
be
heard
kidding
that
me.
term before.
Yeah, and the ward was a med surg unit, but it had, and this was my life aversion to motorcycles. But it was we also had orthopedic and neurosurgery stuff, and back in the days, there was guys who had had spinal cord injuries from motorcycle accidents, and it was just so many of them. I was like, I'll never get that. My son growing up, Dad, what about a motor? Before he could even get cycle out of his mouth, I was like, nope.
I've seen too much as well.
Yeah. So, but back in those days, there's guys who are wearing, they've got these frames that hold their head in place and their spine aligned. And we had them doing tasks. You had to, if you were on the ward for a long period of time, you were doing work. And so this guy would lay on this rollerboard thing, and with the wipers, and he'd bend his legs up, and another guy who had the body cast and he couldn't bend down, he'd like wheel him around. He'd clean up under the beds.
Resourceful.
Absolutely unacceptable today. I was like, this is crazy. What are we doing? And they were like, don't worry, we have this, Lieutenant. I was like, okay, all right.
A lump.
Hopefully I don't go to jail. Yeah, so go ahead.
Your mom was the one that said, "Hey, you're gonna be a nurse."
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you've gone through all the school. You're
Yep.
into the military, and now you're at your first real
Yeah.
unit or anything. Was this? Did you get into nursing because that was what your mom told you that you were gonna do, or was it something that had genuinely always interested you?
I'm a service-oriented person. It was of interest. The rationale that my mom had when she said you're going to be a nurse was nurses are never unemployed. And we were, to this day, I can't eat a tuna casserole because we ate tuna casserole for a year. And I was like, I'm never going to do that again.
I understand that.
Yeah. And so for me, it was a way out.
Yeah.
Right. And my sister, my next sister who's closest to my age, was a nurse. And I knew what she was doing, knew the opportunities that she had. This is before she went in the military as a reservist. But I was like, this, okay. And I love it. I like taking care of people, and I always have. I was the kind kid, but it just was, once I get into it, I didn't look back and say, Mom, what are you telling me to do this for? I just stuck with it.
Was there ever a point when you started dealing with serious injuries or illnesses where you were like, maybe I don't
Never.
want to do this? No?
Never. I could, if you can make a difference, make a difference. And that's really, that's how I've always felt. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's somebody who gets injured on just in a training exercise and it's nothing catastrophic to it's an IED, and you're just trying to keep the person alive if you can, and this is a person that you want to make better. I think that was the driver.
When you got down there to Biloxi,
Yeah.
and you were a lieutenant under your NCO's protection,
Yes.
how was that different from being in the reserves, going to school, and then once you did go active, being in Wichita Falls and being around all the other medical professionals, training all the time?
Yeah.
How was it different as a nurse?
Yeah. Yeah, it was so the chief nurse of the ward the OIC of the ward that I was on had served in, it was a Vietnam medic. I learned more from leadership from him in a year and a half than I did from anybody. He was fantastic, and he was the one who said, he's the one who sort of laid out what a future would be for me in the Air Force and where my skills were best used and what I needed to work on. But I think I can remember coming home on leave and my dad suddenly realizing, holy cow, you're a leader. And I said, nobody had ever said that before. And I think it was the opportunity to do that. I think that was where I was like, okay, and then from working on that ortho neuro med surg floor and moving over to coronary care, to an ICU setting, which was much more high paced. It was much more technical. Lots of people,
I imagine it's much more urgent over there too, just
it was
based on the.
It was, and it was a great opportunity, and during all this time at Keesler, I had this chief nurse of the hospital. She was an 06, and every time I saw her, her name was positive side, Colonel Nelms. I'd say, Colonel Nelms, I want to go to flight school. Every time I'd see her, Colonel Nelms, I want to go to flight school. I want to go to flight school. I want to go to flight school. And that was really my whole goal. Was I wanted to go to San Antonio to go to flight school to become a flight nurse.
When did that idea take hold?
87.
No. I mean, like, when did you have, like, that epiphany? Like, I want to go to flight school.
I knew from when my brother-in-law took me out to Griffiths Air Force Base to an air show that I wanted to fly, and I wanted to do something like that. Of course, my color vision excellence at MEPS proved that I would never do that. But I could fly in the back of a plane.
Next best thing.
Next best thing, yeah. And I don't know. I just always liked the idea of flying, and it was also my nursing style. I wouldn't be a really good quality long-term care nurse because I tend to be better at patients who come in. I take care of them, and then the ICUs tend to be like that. You come in, get you all set, and then you move to
the next level of care.
Yeah.
Aeromedical evacuation is the same thing. When somebody comes on your bird, you have them for the duration of the flight, and then you hand them back off again. I don't know. I think it's a little bit more exciting, in terms of medical care, but yeah.
So she finally got the chief nurse finally got worn down by your constant pestering.
She said there was a trade-off. She said, yes, you're going to go to school, but we're going to delay your PCS by a year because you're going to go down and serve. It was called an aeromedical staging facility. So back in the day, if you were living down in Key West and you were retired, and you needed medical care through the Department of Defense in St. Louis, a plane would run this cycle down, and they have this milk route. Then you go down to Key West, and they come back and drop you off. You spend the night at Keesler, and then you get on a different plane, and they take you up to St. Louis, or they take you to wherever. It was this hub and spoke type of thing.
Yeah.
So the staging facility was patients would come in on the flights every night, so you'd interface with the flights. You'd learn the system, you learn the policies and procedures and the rules and the regulations. And I was in charge of the aeromedical staging facility before, and then at the end of that assignment, Colonel M sent me to 2nd Aeromedical Evacuation Squadron at Rhein-Main, Germany. Prime. It was incredible. That was the best assignment I could have ever had. That was my next assignment.
Was that an option for you? Because the Air Force does it differently than everywhere else. Well, was that just like one of your choices, or was that the one that was chosen for
Colonel
you?
Nelms called me up and said, hey, in June, this was like in the spring, late spring, your PCS and you're going to the 2nd Air Evac in Germany, in Rhein-Main. I was like, done.
You have to tell me twice.
Because it was Europe, you know. And then I don't know, you guys. So what we flew on, what was our primary aircraft was the C9 with the big red cross on the back. I don't know if you've ever remember seeing those. We've gotten rid of them since. Anyways, so I go to Germany, and so the C9s are flying all over. You know, there's a 3-day mission. I leave Rhein-Main, I fly to Berlin. I pick up patients there. I get a little schnitzel and a little coffee, and then I fly to Bremerhaven, and from Bremerhaven,
Coffee.
Yeah. And
What year was this? Did you PCS?
This was been
Late 80s at this point.
yeah,
88?
Yeah, 89.
89?
Yeah, 89, 92 I was there
The wall came down in
in 91,
91? Yeah.
and I was there. I have it. It's just
Okay,
yeah.
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I mean, this is the my life was get on a plane, take your patients, fly to Berlin, fly to Bremerhaven, up to Mildenhall, get fish and chips for lunch, then head down to Rota, spend the night in Rota, then fly from Rota to Sigonella, have lunch, pasta lunch in Sigonella, Sicily, hop over to Naples to Brindisi, Izmir, Incirlik, spend the night in Incirlik, Turkey, come back through Athens, up to Vincenza, up to Aviano, hop over the mountains to Ramstein, and then into Rhein-Main.
How did you survive?
It takes a lot.
Hell on earth.
Must have been.
Yeah,
Ugh.
I know. And then what would happen? It was crazy. Like a week later, in your mailbox, you get a check.
Oh man.
TDY check.
So
I don't know the burden the Air Force has.
We've had flight medic on an Army flight medic.
Rotary
so
wing?
this is rotary wing. He's
Yeah.
a medic, not a nurse.
Yeah.
Mr. Joe Campbell. What other than the combat, which is a very notable exception, how is your position different from doing that?
So it was really these things the routes were set up to take care of, like we'd take, like in Europe, the kids on a remote, like if you're in Torrejón, you're going, or if you're in Zaragoza, Spain, you're not going to school there. You're going to school in Italy, or you may go to school up in Germany. So it's a lot of moving kids around that are having trouble.
Okay.
There was only two places for women to deliver military. So it was either Naples or Germany or Wiesbaden. So if you were in Spain and you were about to deliver, you got on our plane, no matter how close you were. Always the favorite was out of Brindisi, Italy, which is in the heel of Italy.
Okay.
It's a listening center. It's the drug and alcohol guys who are stuck listening to Albanians 24 hours a day. And broke our airplane broke. So on the C9, the hatch door didn't come in on aircraft. They come in. This one opened out. We took off out of Athens, and the pilot goes, "We got a bad door lock. We got to land because it becomes another wing if it pops up."
Oh yeah.
Anyways, so we ended up landing in Brindisi, and we went in, and I got all the patients set and took care of them. Went in, we were like, okay, let's go get something to eat. And I said, well, let's get a beer before it gets too late, right? It was like 10 o'clock. We walked into the bowling alley. We said, what time do you guys close? And they said, never. What time do you stop serving beer? Never. I was like, now that answers my question.
And 3 hours later, he was a don in the Albanian mafia.
Yeah. So it was great. So how is it different? It would be different patients. Accidents happen. So whether it's an Incirlik and there's an aircraft accident, we flew them out.
Yeah. This is anywhere from trauma to routine is what I'm...
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other one was max packs. So if you could move people around the system, we would have passengers on board. So at any time, the plane was full. Yeah. The aircraft was full. And
Well, I think, so as a flight medic like Joe Campbell, or a first responder and stabilizer, but as a flight nurse on a fixed wing, you guys are transporting patients that are already stabilized. If
depends on where they came from.
Yeah. But I mean, you guys are transporting pregnant women that are about to deliver, so you're there just in case.
Yeah.
If somebody needed, say, cancer treatment
Mm-hmm.
or something like that,
Yeah.
then you would be transporting them,
Yeah.
making sure that they're stabilized and they have.
If they had treatments
Yeah.
during the transit,
Yeah.
then you'd take care of it.
Yeah.
You know, there was I flew into Yemen. There was
What was Yemen like in the
it's wild.
late 80s?
In the late 80s, it was that. So that was the issue, was that 2 Americans were involved, and the population went after the vehicle, and the embassy had them in their embassy, but without any medical care. So when you say, you know, you sustain them, basically we got them as if they just came out of their vehicle. It was They came on the aircraft. And because we're carrying a Red Cross, we have clearance, and we're considered under the Geneva Convention. You know, knock on wood.
Yeah.
Do they observe that in Yemen?
Yeah. There were a few times there. You know, we flew into Israel to pick up somebody, and we landed at Ben Gurion Airport, and you know, we had it says United States of America on the side of the aircraft, and it's got a big Red Cross on it. And I got off the aircraft, I looked at the guys who parked it. I said, "Could you park us any closer to the highway? Are you serious?" The highway was like on the other side of that door.
Yeah.
And then anyway, so there were a number. Most, I'd say 90% of the time it was sustainment, like you said. Some hairy times, the women who were about ready to deliver between Sigonella and Naples. Those were interesting.
Did you ever have to deliver anyone?
Never, thank God. You know, thank God. It was like get them, you know. The other one was a guy who had a bad motorcycle accident in Istanbul, Turkey. They brought him out on a door, and it was like, yeah, that door's not going to work in this aircraft, and we had to move him onto a. And anyway, so there's a lot of cases, a lot of really wacky stuff, but you know, that you can't make this stuff up for. And then in the middle of that, we were also the response for Europe and Africa, so Liberia. And then when Desert Shield Storm kicked off, we were the lead. We absorbed all the reserve and guard aeromedical evacuation, but we were the hub.
So that route that you guys were flying was about a 24-hour route?
3 days.
3 days, okay.
Yeah.
How often did you, or I should say, you're on this route for 3 days.
Yep.
You get home.
Yeah.
Do you immediately start all over again, or is it 3 days on, 2 days off?
2 days off, usually.
Okay.
2 days off. And then usually one day off, 1 day back on alert. An alert was we always had a bird sitting on the ground. Yep.
Yeah.
And you know, you were either primary alert or secondary. If you were secondary, the odds of you going were really low. So if you came off a 3-dayer, you'd take 1 day off, and then you get secondary alert, and then the next day you'd be primary alert, and then the next day you'd be back out the door again.
No. It's the same route every time?
No, 2-day missions, 1-day missions, just depend. Okay. Yeah, depends on where you were, what the target was.
So basically, people would book their appointments. Their appointments would then show up on, you know, whatever the roster was, and you guys would organize the well, not you specifically, but the flights would then be organized.
Administrative person, the medical administrative people in the hospitals would then put them into the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you know, you did ground time too. So while everybody's out flying, I would be the person who's taking the phone calls from the hospital saying, I have an urgent, and then what you're doing on my side is you're trying to figure out what's going on with the patient, what do they need, where have they been, what was the best way to get them moved, and then I was preparing I was doing all the advanced planning, so when the crew came in and took them, they were all set. That there were no surprises. Some of our big ones, and I always laugh, I tell people that, so the rule was that if somebody was going to drug and alcohol treatment, they had to be dry for 3 days. Well, if you're in this little podunk outpost of somewhere in Greece, you're not holding the guy for 3 days. You're like going, oh, there's a plane? Here, yeah, 3 days? He's 3 days. Guarantee it. Trust me.
Don't ask any more
Trust
questions.
me, my friend.
My friend.
And I learned my lesson after a couple of times when guys started to go into delirious tremors, DTs during the flights, which become really really problematic
At altitude.
at altitude.
Yeah.
And then everybody would say, so as a senior flight nurse, I was the head of training for the organization, and they would go, "What's that other bag for?" I said, "That's my beer." And they were like, "You're bringing beer?" I said, "Oh yeah." And then I'd have a guy who was going through
Not
the
for
liver
me.
streamer, and I go, "Would you like a beer?" And he'd say, "Yeah." And then the delirious tremors would subside, and you'd go, "There you go."
It's hair of the dog.
It is. It's so, but I mean, you learn you're alone. You know, there's no physician. It's 2 nurses, 3 medical technicians on the plane. And then those were the C9s. And then we had 141s that we would move from the Middle East up to Germany, and then Germany back to Andrews. And those were hairy, because you would get patients who were really, really sick that you're bringing back to the United States, and you're alone between. You've got a 8.5, 9-hour flight.
The Atlantic.
Yeah. I bailed out to Keflavik a couple of times. We bailed out to Goose Bay, not because they were going to do anything, but because I needed better power. I needed better oxygen.
Really, really sick. How?
Ventilated, head injuries, heart. There used to be this system, and it's still around today, but not used as much, called an intra-aortic balloon pump. You never want one. It's basically a balloon, a big long balloon that sits in your aorta.
And it inflates.
It inflates and
Yeah.
deflates based on your heart rate, so that it reduces the workload of your heart and perfuses everything. Yeah, try to do that at altitude. Yeah. And then you're just those were those missions, and then Desert Shield Storm. I had to make a really tough decision on whether I had 17 litter patients, 17 really badly injured people, burned mostly after the Scud stuff. And do you decrease altitude? If I decrease altitude to increase the oxygen level that the person gets, then it takes me longer to get somewhere, and the plane can't fly as far. So now I have to stop somewhere, and if I stop somewhere, then this other patient may have difficulty because I've just lengthened the time.
Prolonged the time.
So you're sort of like going, okay, how can I balance this out and do the best for the most at that point?
So the pilots, this is a question, they are literally flying the plane, but when it comes to those types of decisions, that's getting made by y'all.
Yeah, we work really closely. We would work really closely with them. And we had a good relationship in the C9. So at one end of we had this long building in Germany. At one end was the C9, the pilots, and at the other end was the aeromedical evacuation. We were separated. And they had this whole wall of dignitaries that they had flown around Europe. And I got a picture of Ralph Cramden, and I got it into a frame, and I wrote on it, "From one bus driver to another, thanks for all you're doing." And they didn't realize it for about a year. And then I used to joke. But yes, the point is that we had a really great relationship, but it was very collegial. And it was like, listen, this is what we need to do. We need to go. We need to stop here, or we need to divert. And I would always be on the bird to phone back to Germany.
Yeah.
With the person who was sitting at the desk going, listen, this is what's happening. I've got to divert to this airfield. Can you make sure that somebody's there? Does the hospital have the capacity to take care of it? But I need to get them off this plane like right now.
Yeah.
And then we would work with the air crew. And there was a couple of times he was like, I can't make that landing. This plane's just too big for it. And I was like, swear to God, you got to get it in there. He goes, we can do it once. I don't know if I can get it out. And I was like, if you don't do it, I think this guy's going to die. Yeah. And they did it. We got in. We landed right at the end of the runway, and then we got out. Took us a little bit.
Tell us about that.
It was in Greece. Actually, there's even a little bit more because we were so low on fuel. We had to get fuel, but there's a better story, and I'll do it quickly. We had the guy was having grand mal seizures, and I could not stop it. And he was to the point where I thought he was going to end up dying, and I needed to get him to a medical facility that could intubate him, that could medicate him, intubate him, sedate him to the point where they could put him on a ventilator. And there was one in this place, but it was a little tiny airfield. The C9, Guys got in. We landed. Deplaned the guy. Went off. The ground crew, our team up in Germany, has set it up perfect. Boom, was off the plane. She's gone. And then we were like, okay, now we got to get fuel at this place. And swear to God, this guy in this little cart came out, right? And he's like, we're trying to figure out how do we get this jet fuel.
He's got like a gardening hose.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and literally
in the Army we have a term for a tool that we use to get fuel into the vehicles, but I'm not going to use it.
Okay. And so well, the fuel intake is on the underside of the wing, not on the top side. Yeah. So it's on. Anyway, so we're sitting there, we're going through it. We just need enough fuel. We're literally that plan is take off light, get to the next main airfield so we can refuel. And so anyways, this guy comes up and he puts this fuel in. I can't remember how much it was at this time, but we have this little receipt. And we go, here, we're gonna piece of paper. U.S. government will pay you. He was like, no. We had the little blue card. This is like a credit card. U.S. governmental. You just use that. He was like, no. American Express. Looks, everybody's going around going, oh shit. Well, I had an American Express card. I was like, I'll pay. So we paid. We get the fuel. We get back on the plane. Plane takes off. We go to the next stop. Blah blah blah. Well, I get home and I go to my wife and I go, I put a charge on our American Express for jet fuel, and it's like $8,000. And she goes, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. And I said, no, but I'm going to file it as a travel voucher on my voucher and we'll get reimbursed in a few days. She goes, yeah, whatever. I have to go. I go into the to the comptroller and I have to get the squadron commander to come over with me to validate that, to vouch for it. Anyways.
Vouch for the voucher.
Vouch for the voucher. A month later, we get a phone call, and it's American Express. Oh, Mr. Lorraine, we noticed that you had, because I had bought carpets down in Turkey, and I previously had been in Saudi Arabia, bought carpets there and done, expenditures there, and I bought jet fuel. So the American Express person was, oh, we'd love to upgrade your card.
Of course.
Because international man of mystery.
Exactly. I said, how much is it? And she told me. I was like, nah, we're good. I said,
He said, yeah, baby.
But I have jet fuel on my record somewhere. I have jet fuel on my credit card.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you saved a guy's life, too.
And to save the guy's life. Yeah. And then they stabilized him. The CNI pilots were like, we're not going back into there ever again. We have him moved over to this, like 2 hours away. But anyways, yeah. Yeah. It was a great assignment. Yeah, loved it.
How long were you there for?
3 years. And then, like I said, Desert Shield Storm was in the midst of it, so we did that.
And the wall going down.
Yeah, the wall was wild. Yeah. Going there when the wall was up, and then going back when the wall had come down. I was with some friends. We were walking down by the Brandenburg Gate. It was after the wall had come down. And I said, there's no better sight in the world. And they said, what's that? I said, Soviet uniforms for sale. I like that.
Did you have an OER bullet before you left out of there that said something along the lines of, I'm not saying I single-handedly made sure the wall went down, but let's just say it was up when I got here and it was down when I left.
You know what? I didn't. I missed that one. I do. Berlin was phenomenal. We would fly in and out of Tempelhof, and Tempelhof was the old. And when you look at, if you've ever seen the photos of the Tempelhof airport, what's known about it is that it's a single hangar. It's huge, this arching hangar. And when you look at it from the sky, I didn't realize it until later, but you look at it from the sky, it's actually the Eagle from the German Eagle.
Yeah, the Third Reich.
Yeah, and but all the Messerschmitts were made in the basement. But you could bring a C9 in underneath that hangar and turn it around. It was enormous. But we would fly in, and it was the same flights. And our ops officer, his dad was the Candy Bomber. Who his dad would come over, and his dad had permission to fly on any airlift plane that he wanted to, and he'd come out and fly with us. And he'd fly into Tempelhof, and he would every time he would cry. Every time he would cry. He said, "I can remember these buildings were still here."
Yeah.
And when you'd fly in this little tiny corridor, and literally you're flying in and you're looking into somebody's window. He said it was the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, it was a great history. It was incredible.
Yeah. Now, of course, what's left of the wall, like
Yeah.
Checkpoint Charlie,
Yeah.
that's a tourist attraction.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't imagine that it was so at the time.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, and
Was it something that you and your wife, your coworkers, did you guys like actively say, hey, let's go check out the Berlin Wall?
no. So at the time, I went to the Berlin. We went to the Berlin Wall for work. I went with work. But to bring a family, there was so much unrest. I was like, we're not going to Berlin. Because we knew it was 89, it was starting to go 90, it was really starting to go. We were like, no, let's not go. This is not a place for us to go. Yeah, we knew that we knew that something was going to happen, and I didn't want to be there when it did happen.
Yeah.
If you've ever been to Berlin, you're literally, you're an island to yourself there, and there's no way out. It was just something that they would take junior officers, and you'd go as a group, and then they'd take you through Berlin, and you could go into East Berlin as a group. And I crossed through Checkpoint Charlie. Had a little incident. I got too many East German marks, and you obtained East German marks, and then you went into East Berlin, and then you bought things, and everybody said, get the optics. The optics are incredible. Get this, get that, get that. Go. Well, at the time, there's nothing. And I came back through, and I had a whole bunch of East German marks, and they were like, nope, go back and spend them. And my whole group had already moved away. The lead officer that was with us was with me, and he was like, don't do anything. And I said, yeah, I got to go spend it. So they gave us an escort, and I leaned down to tie my shoe.
They were forcing you to
spend the marks,
to pump money into the East German
economy.
I
offered to buy this little bit of candy for like $50 in East German marks, $50 US in East German marks, and they were like, nope. And the lady was like, she saw it sitting there, and it was probably as much as she made in a month. And she looked over my shoulder and looked down and looked over, and she was like, no. Yeah. So anyways, but it was interesting. East Berlin was interesting then. It's beautiful now. When I went back, it's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah.
Berlin was like you said, there was unrest, a growing unrest. What was the attitude of the German populace throughout the rest of the country that you were exposed to?
Very, very positive. I had the distinct honor, because I was the senior. So I lived in a 162 apartment complex outside of the gate that was built government housing.
Yeah.
It was buildings that were built from the rubble of Frankfurt, and they brought it together. That was the mortar. And there was one stairwell that was officers, and all of them had successfully eluded being made the mayor of the community, except for me. And so I was the mayor. The deputy mayor was a chief master sergeant, and his name literally was Leroy Brown. Absolutely huge guy, scared the daylights out of me.
Just like the song.
Yeah, and he was there, and he's like, Captain Lorraine, we'll be okay. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And every day, I'd be at work and I'd do whatever. I'd come home, and there'd be something going on. I'd have somebody at my door, and it was like, my water doesn't work. Okay, the kids didn't get picked up on time for the Dodd school. It's like, okay. I said to my wife, there's never a break. There's never a break. But this gets to your question about what was the local people were in the town that we lived in. It was called Langen. Loved the Americans. They matter of fact, when Desert Storm kicked off, I should say, the German people came and basically surrounded and faced out our area, because there was no fence, there was no security, there was nothing. but they were there. They were there. The Pulitzi was there. They were like, "Don't worry, you're okay." And I called to the wing, the base operations, and I said, "Did you call the local police to come out?" And they said, "No." I said, "Well, they're here. They're surrounding our housing complex." And they said, "Are they facing in?" I said, "No, they're facing out." They were like, "Okay, that's good." And I said, "Does somebody want to come over?" And he goes, "You just handle it." I was like, "Okay, got it."
So
anyways, it's
at this point you had been promoted to captain.
yeah.
But when you got home, you probably weren't the highest man on the totem pole there in your building. As you said, other senior officers in your building had avoided such a menial duty as being mayor of the town. So my question is, when you got home and you took off your uniform and you're no longer Captain Lorraine, did you make everybody call you Mr. Mayor?
No.
And why not?
Yeah.
And why not? Yeah.
I mean,
no.
if all these more important people have successfully, dodged their duty as leader of this, military housing area, I certainly would have.
You would have, yeah.
I certainly would have. Yeah.
I had my hands full. I had the guy who
I
lived
might have
below
even
us.
had business cards made.
We had an incident where I came out one day and there's this Army, so there's all Air Force. There's this Army private, and he's walking down the street, gets in a car, and I was like, and I called Leroy. I go, "Why is there an Army private in our community?" He goes, "I don't know, maybe a friend." So anyways, I get home that night, and there's another different PFC. It's like getting in their car. It's like, when did we have the Army? Why do we have Army really, really junior enlisted here? Anyways, what we found out was one of the daughters of one of the residents there were maids' quarters up above on the top floors of these things. Yeah. Making a little extra money. And I said to Leroy, who was the head of the security police I said, "This is not a mayor thing. This is a you thing." And he was like, "Okay, I got it." So why didn't I have cards made? I didn't want anybody to know who I was. I just wanted to wanted to do my job. I want to go home. Yeah. And I talk to people today, and they say, I never get a break, and it's like, yeah, you don't. Like that was the experience I had was, people who will work in public office, they never. People that I know, you go out to dinner in Washington, D.C., or you go to dinner here, or you go out to this, there's never a break.
You're never off the clock.
Never off the clock.
Because there's no clock.
There is no clock. And you just have to be prepared for it. And nobody said, "Guess what, Jim? You're going to fly Aerovac in Germany." Colonel Nelms didn't say, "Great deal. You're going to go to Germany and fly in Europe, and you're going to have a ball. Oh, by the way, you got to be the mayor." Because then I would have said, "Oh, can I?"
That's how they get you.
That's how they get you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in a minute here, we'll take a little break.
Yeah.
And then you can tell us about what happened after Germany.
Well, let me tell you really quick so there's one piece, and it's important because I'll send you some pictures with it. So you've watched Charlie Wilson's War?
Yeah.
Right? So there was another piece that was called McCullough Mission. So the route, what it was going into Pakistan and picking up kids, Afghanistan kids in Mujahideen who had been injured and wounded, and then bringing them back to Europe for care or back to the United States. And back at the time when we did it, it was classified, but we'd fly a 141 down to Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, and then Dhahran up to Islamabad, and then we would be bringing stuff in. I remember seeing these guys, "Hey, what's in these big long boxes?" And they were like, "Don't worry."
Band-Aids.
Yeah, go up and stand up and
Aspirin.
go back to the front of the aircraft. And
Ibuprofen.
Ibuprofen, yeah. Balloon pump material. No. But anyways, we would get in, land at night. They download everything. Then the folks who'd made it over the pass would come in, and we'd bring kids home. This was when at the end. The Soviets had a little bit of a presence. It wasn't overly. The Northern Alliance hadn't turned it, but did a couple of missions where we evacuated kids who'd lost their hands, lost their vision. to booby traps and other things, and then men who were just really badly wounded and they were refused to be on a litter. They would walk in, and the one story I want to tell you, because it comes into play later in my career, was I had this kid and I had this really new device called this Walkman. And it was a yellow Walkman that you could take into the water with you and stuff. It was really high speed with a headset on it. And this kid was just so upset being on this 141. And I saw in his bag that he had a cassette tape, and I got my Walkman out, put the cassette tape in, hit it, and I put the headphones on him. He was really resistant, hit play, and he just calmed. He just was like at peace. And everybody was like, what the heck did you just do? And I said, I just put that cassette in, and he's listening to it, and he's doing okay. And he had corneal abrasions from a blast, so he couldn't see super well. And I was like pointy-talkie, can I listen? I wanted to hear what he was listening to. And I put the headset on, and it was the sound of a battle. It was automatic weapons, it was helicopters, it was rockets, it was a battle. And that kid was at peace. And you have to think, he was probably 11 years old. So 11 years old in 1989. So he was there. He was young. He had lived from the 80s on, from 1980, from the occupation on. His life was battle, and he was at peace. And that just hit me so hard, that you could grow up like that, and where you find peace is in battle. And the story continues after 9/11, when I'm sitting in a little room with a bunch of guys trying to figure out how we're going to go into Afghanistan. I said, let me tell you the story. And they went, I said, that kid right now is in his mid-30s, and you better pray to God he's on our side. And I had his name. I had the manifest from those missions. Anyways, we came back and looked through the manifests, and they were like, holy cow, we know that guy, we know that guy, we know that guy. I said, they all speak English, because they all were at Brooke Army Medical Center, or they were at Bethesda, or they were at Rochester, at the top medical facilities being treated in the United States or in Europe. It was pretty cool.
Were they on our side?
They were, yeah. Dostum's son was one of the guys we had evacuated. He was on our side, and that was one of the things they said. Remember, we took care of your son. That was pretty. But anyways, so that was the Aerovac in Europe. That was crazy.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's take a break.
Sounds good.
So, how long were you in Germany?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Did you choose to leave? Did the Air Force say that you were going to leave? Did you try to stay?
I didn't, because my next duty assignment was to beautiful Air Force Base.
No Hope
I've heard of this place.
No Hope Pope.
Yeah, we went from Germany to Pope.
I had never heard it called No Hope Pope before until a friend of ours, Mark, told me that when I was talking to him a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had never heard it called that here, growing up here.
Even really? Yeah. People used to say, my dad, when he came to visit, we went on to Pope, drove through Fort Bragg, went on to Pope. He goes, why do you have a fence around Pope? I said, did you just see what we just drove through?
It's called Spring Lake.
No, it was Riley Road.
I know. I was trying to deflect. I was trying to deflect. Yes.
Yeah, my wife. So in terms of military service, my wife served in the military. She retired as an 06 as a nurse, but she joined in 1977. And her first duty, she was in the third class of women to go to have jump school at Fort Benning, and so she was airborne military intelligence, and she was assigned to 7 Special Forces Group in 1977 here.
That was a Wild West.
Wild West, yeah. So
that's still the Vietnam era,
Yeah,
still.
yeah. But so my wife, she has stories about the Green Beret Club, and just how wild it was here back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we came to Pope. Lived off of Cliffdale Road down here.
Now, given the reputation of the Fayetteville, Fort Bragg, Pope area at the time,
Yeah.
when you came down on orders, and you're in Germany, which is
Yeah.
obviously wonderful for a lot of different reasons,
Yeah.
but when you came down on orders for Pope, I'm sure that you had heard some things along the way through your career.
Yeah. So when we PCS from Keesler, we had friends who were stationed at Pope, and we stopped here in South Fayetteville. So we sort of knew it a little bit, and then we went to Germany, came back. But we knew, but it was this was 92, 93, 94. I was here. I was assigned to the 1st Aeromedical Evacuation Squadron, which was the Air Evac Squadron at Pope. That really was the tactical 130s focus, and it was a different mission. Did a lot of training. I used to say we're the best mannequin care in the. I had a lot of people. I came in. I was promoted to major. I came into this unit, and most of the nurses that came to the unit that was their first Aerovac assignment. So I was one of the few that had come from a place where you really carried people to a place that you were training to go to combat, and your focus was trauma movement. It's much different than the idea was much different than. It was like if you could get a plane on the ground to do an air-land mission, you could move patients off of on it, and then we work really closely with the Ford surgical teams, and then work closely with the JSOC teams that were there, elements that were there. So it was really more of the mission. While we were the only unit, we were really focused on support to the 82nd Airborne, and then to the JSOC teams.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that era. I mean, the Cold War and Desert Storm are in the rear view. We're not really involved in the Balkans yet.
Mm-mm. Yeah,
I know that there's some Haiti and a couple other things.
Yeah,
but
we mobilized to go to Haiti.
Yeah,
ran.
But what else are you really doing
Somalia
outside of? Okay, well, yeah,
yeah.
Somalia would have happened right in that time. Yeah, that's right.
We went Haiti, and then I went to Somalia in 91.
Yeah.
91? No. 92, 93. I went back 3 times. So I went once.
Yeah.
We landed the day after the SEALs made their infiltration by CNN TV cameras.
Yep. Who could forget?
Yeah, we landed. We took off, landed on the C5. I'll never forget. Everybody was like red lights, and we got off the bird, and we knew right where we were going to go to set. And then I remember waking up. I was sleeping on the ground. And yes, we were in the Air Force because it was a whole different thing. I was sleeping on the ground. I remember waking up on the ground, waking up, and it was covered, but there was no walls or anything. I remember waking up and looking to the side, and there's this concertina wire that was run, and on the other side of the concertina wire is like 15 Somali kids like standing there.
Just staring at
you.
I know
I was
the feeling.
Like, okay, this is different. And so, but that's what we had trained to do, and it was the wild. Anyways, here it was interesting, family wise. It was interesting here, to a New Englander and a upstate New Yorker. This was more unsettling here than going to Biloxi, Mississippi. Coming here.
Why?
It was, my wife used to say, and our son was like 1 or 2. She would say, "Can I go to a movie theater where in the summer? So where do the troopers go in the summer when it's really, really hot and it's hot in the barracks? Movie theater."
Or the bowling alley.
But movie theater. She goes to a movie theater. She goes, "I'm watching a kid's movie, and these guys are all giving sexual connotations to everything that's happening in the thing." And she stands up and goes, "Can you just shut up? I've got my 2-year-old son here." And she was like, "This is crazy.
Yeah.
This is she used to love to go over to Southern Pines, and but it was a different place. It was a different place on a number of levels. When I was very involved with when the F-16 hit the 141.
Yeah, mid-90s, yeah.
Yeah, that changed a lot of culture. I remember going to the commissary at Bragg, and I tell you what, there was hostility for the Air Force.
Dan and I were young men here when that happened, and the community was deeply affected by that.
Yeah. I was in the building. So you guys know obviously you know Green Ramp. There's a wing operations headquarters right to the side of Green Ramp, and I was in that building when the plane hit. And I came out of that building. We thought something happened, and we evacuated out the back door of the building. Where's the back door of the building go? Goes right into the fire, and it was like,
you could feel the heat,
and it was like
first.
Curly, Moe, and Larry, the three of us, bam, 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 run into each other coming out the door, and the door closes behind us, and guess what happened?
It locks behind you. Yeah.
So we were in the middle of it. The fireball probably had gone through maybe 5 minutes or less before. It was that whole thing had such, and then it flipped everything. Everybody switched in terms of that moment to how do we help. It was unreal. We had no idea what happened, and then everybody was worried about where did the hydrozoline tanks off the 16 go, because those are like super toxic,
very toxic,
and so we were helping guys. It was really my first engagement with guys who didn't wear uniforms showing up like that in vehicles that didn't look like everybody else's, and then moving people over to Womack. Met a great friend at Womack that I met her there, and then we've crossed, and her name is Patty Horoho. She was the Surgeon General for the Army at the time. She was in charge of the ER at Womack, and we kept crossing paths after that. Anyways, it was crazy. But it changed how the community felt. It changed how they felt. And maybe I was oversensitive, but a little bit. If you wore a flight suit, I didn't go to the commissary.
I've never heard it.
You didn't
from Air Force perspective, I never heard that before.
Yeah, it was just and it passed, but it was just still still something there. Anyways,
was it? Were there any instances that you know of where it was overt?
Oh yeah, well in the gym, because everybody, we used to say, where did those who were in the know in the Army who wanted to go to a really good gym would go to the Pope's gym.
Oh yeah,
and
I was one of them.
Yeah, you were one of them. Yeah, but I mean, there was a lot of tension then. In matter of fact, when you were in the gym, comments being made. If you guys can't fly, don't fly. If you're killing more of us than you are them, type of stuff.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's very pre 9/11.
Oh yeah,
mentality, but
yeah. But I mean, it was that happened. There were a lot of things that happened here, but and I think to compound it, at least for my family, I wasn't here a lot. Was involved in Haiti. First rule, if you transit through an air base where your family is, you should call them and let them know that you did that. I went from Port-au-Prince, flew to Charleston, went from Charleston, took a bus up here to Pope, literally threw my bag in, which was my woodlands, and pulled my deserts out, got on the C-5, and then flew to Saudi Arabia because Saddam was coming back south for a thing called Desert Fox. He was coming back into Kuwait, and we got mobilized to go provide. And I remember calling home, and my wife said, "Hey, be careful about that hurricane that's coming into the Caribbean." I was like, "I'm not there. I'm in the Middle East. I'm in Kuwait, supporting the 1st Armored Division." Yeah.
Going back to the crash, when you guys got locked out of the building,
yeah,
were you able to provide some assistance, some support in any way?
It was chaos.
I imagine.
Yeah, it was chaos because because you had everyone who was in the fireball, and then all the guys who were getting ready to get on the bird that the fireball passed over came up, and so it was like there was no organization. It was literally, and then there were guys behind trees, and there were guys over here, and there was guys. You were finding guys everywhere. I was very involved in that, and then I got pulled out because it was like, okay, we're going to evacuate them. We're going to have to get them to Brooke Army or other locations. And then the C9s that were in the United States came in, and then they were the ones to take it on, but we did all the ground stuff for them. But so I got pulled off of everything that was there and moved over.
Less direct involvement, more organizational.
Direct involvement initially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you got pulled off of that.
Yeah. Direct involvement. I'd say maybe for 5 or 6 casualties that I put on a vehicle or on an ATV for them to take up to Womack to get them out, because everything was still on fire. Yeah. Not like you'd think a fire, but like a fireball comes through and then the fire that was still remaining there.
Yeah. Fast forward about 10 years.
Yeah.
I was a young lieutenant in the 82nd, and there were a handful of guys around the division that were survivors from that. And
Yeah.
You could pick them out of a crowd because they were badly burned.
Yeah.
Badly.
Yeah.
But they're still around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just, it's not like, you don't think of it as like a house fire that's fully engulfed. It was a fire.
It's a flash.
But the trees were on fire. In between may not have been, or the platforms were on fire, but it wasn't like a full engulf. You could move, Yeah, it was just crazy. It was crazy. Yeah, I never, we'd load it at Green Ramp, and it was always in your mind. And I would have bet those guys every time they load at Green Ramp, it's always in your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So after 3 years here,
then I go to Air Mobility Command in Scott Air Force Base, and I took over. I was the head of plans for air medical evacuation, and then I ran air medical evacuation.
you're still a major at this point.
Major, yeah. And then I did that for 4 years, basically doing all the planning, setting up the what's the process look like, running exercises for air medical evacuation all over the world. Anytime you went to Team Spirit or Bright Star or Reforger, it was Air Mobility Command that would run the whole thing. All the strategic airlift was ours.
Yeah.
That was also a time when I started to get more involved in. I had been, after I came back from Somalia, I did more work with a unit at JSOC that did medical work, and had a pretty good relationship with them, and then went to Air Mobility Command, and they had a cell there that was a special operations cell. I had a TSSEI coming out of this Aerovac unit, which was one of the few that was an Aerovac that did, and so then would get pulled in to do work, a little bit of work with them.
Coordination type stuff.
Coordination stuff, yeah. They were doing stuff called renditions at the time, which are public now. But I won't go into a lot of detail. But basically, the bottom line was the need for people who got on a plane to be in better condition getting off than they got on, and so that was a lot of it. That was really long range air medical evacuation, especially if you wanted to go to the Arabian Peninsula and not cross an international border. You wanted to stay in international waters the whole way. It's a long flight, a lot of work, a lot of coordination,
refueling,
multiple, and you fly them on KC-135s. The thrust to weight ratio on a KC-135 that's unladen exceeds that of an F-16. Believe it or not.
Did not know that.
Yeah, so it can haul. That's the bottom line, is it can haul, and it. But I mean, it's great movement for over long distances, but there was a lot of coordination going on about that. There was other things that you don't think of in the medical community that are connected to special operations that you have to sort of consider. So I worked that, tangentially, which got me to my next couple of assignments.
Being part of the mobility command,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a patient care job as far as hands on.
No.
It's more of the planning and stuff.
Yeah.
Was that a kind of a welcome change for you to be away from patients, or were you like, this is not for me. I want to be,
Yeah.
I want to be challenged by whatever medical emergency.
Yeah. That came, so my desire to do that was something I changed to. And I changed to it because when I was in Somalia and during Somalia, what happened was, so in the aeromedical evacuation world, you've got flight nurses, you got medical technicians, and then you have healthcare administrators who tend to be the planners, right? And then you have other people that aren't really, they're not involved. They don't do patient care. They don't do the mission. They don't do the patient care. They're not like and I used to say, do you think the pilots are letting somebody who doesn't fly a plane plan their missions? So why are we not involved in planning our missions when we should be? So when I came out of.
You mean, why isn't patient care?
No,
why aren't patient care personnel taken into the planning world?
We get put in Mogadishu in places that I strongly disagreed with, and I was like, why are we doing this? This is absolutely crazy. That where we are, we're getting shot at all the time. Why did who decided to put us here?
Yeah.
And who decided to put the camp here? And who decided that this was a really good idea to move the main hospital off the airfield up to the embassy, which is in the middle of the city? And every time you go through the city, you're getting pinged at, or somebody's throwing rocks at you, or you're getting harassed the whole way up. There's no secure way to get to that hospital. And I said, I'm not going to let somebody who doesn't have to do it plan it anymore. That's what I'm going to go into this field for. And that's why why it was good to go into, why I look forward to it, because I would go into planning and say, this is what we're going to do. This is what happens on the plane. This is how the length of how much oxygen can be used out of this thing, and how long it has to be refueled, how long it takes to refill it, and how long the cycle is, and what the altitude. I knew all the dynamics of aeromedical evacuation, so I could plan in that. I would go, we can't do that. We can't fly past that point because I'm going to run out of oxygen. Oh, we didn't think of that. Well, it's because you don't do it. Sorry, I'll step down off my. But so I got more into planning.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to be, I said, we need to control our own fate. To get put into positions or decisions made that aren't going to be in the best interest of the patient and the mission, let's not do that.
Yeah.
And so I started to do more planning, got involved in it more. It was really, it was not a nurse's role. Matter of fact, the chief nurse of the Air Force, she and I had a conversation. She goes, the direction you're going is not going to get you to 06. And I said, I know that. That's okay. I said, that's not going to get me to 07 either, because you only have 107 in the nurse corps, and it's not going to be me. and I said, so I understand. And so I took more of I stood in and said, okay, we're going to take more of a role. And then other nurses came in, and it became more of a nurse's role of, okay, we're going to do the planning. We're going to need your help on the logistical side, which was the expertise of the Medical Service Corps officers. But in terms of what happens in that plane and who we put on that plane, like when we flew into Haiti, it was a perfect example. Here's what we're going to do. And I was like, oh, that'll never work. Oh, yeah, well, no, it won't. And we stepped through it, the planning, because we were on some of the first birds that were projected to go air land into Haiti for the invasion. And I was like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring everybody. You're just, we talked to the 82nd, into the Rangers, and we were like, anybody who you have, there's no surgical capability on the ground. We'll take everybody. And everybody looked at me and they said, are you out of your mind? I said, they're going to die there. They might as well try with us. We just got to hop to the next island and drop them off. And I said, and we're going to just floor load them all. And everyone was like, no way. And I said, you're going to save lives. If you leave them here, they're going to die. Anyways, so that's why I got into planning. I know that was more intense than.
Oh no.
Or-
I mean, you're the expert. Did your passion
Yeah.
for having actual expertise involved in the planning process,
Yeah.
did that ruffle a few feathers?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it did. It did.
That impacted your career?
You know, I went a different route. So I you know, when I left Air Mobility Command, I did a fellowship on the Joint Staff, and then I went to SOCOM. And then I was at SOCOM. I had already been working with the guys here.
Yeah.
Like we introduced while at Air Mobility Command, I said to the guys, I was like, why aren't we using C9s to move the people? They were like, why not? What do you mean? I said, you got a dedicated airplane that has all the medical. You're planning to go do a mission in a place that this frequents regularly. Why are we not using that? Why are you trying to use a 130? And they were like, can we use the C9? I said, yeah, they belong to, now at Air Mobility Command, yeah, they belong to us. I'll get them. And so we introduced them into the mission planning for the units up here to move patients. They had all the oxygen, they had everything suction, they had everything you needed that was integral to the plane, but nobody ever thought, let's use the C9s because
What was it? Well, that's the way we've always done it.
that was. Yeah. Well, we can get 130s. I said you can get not C9s. They're more than capable, and where you want to go, they have the range, and you don't have to refuel them. And the more important thing is people know that they're not an unknown entity. They come in on a weekly basis, whether it was in the Pacific or whether it was in Europe or whether it was in other places. People know them. They don't know that 130, but they know that plane.
Yeah.
So why not use it?
Yeah.
Anyways, so we got more and more into planning, and yeah. So I did ruffle feathers, but I mean, yeah. I was the first nurse to go to SOCOM, and then I was told you'll never get promoted. And I was like, okay.
So Special Operations Command down in McDill
Yeah.
in Tampa area.
In Tampa, yeah, McDill.
So what's your position there?
Well, first, when did you head there?
I headed there. So I went from Scott Air Force Base I was the fellow for General Sheldon when he was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs Staff. And I and another team so we went to General Sheldon and said, it's our big, Mike, you guys will appreciate this later in life. General Sheldon said, I got two choices. I got this. So the medical community had overspent its budget every year on TRICARE. It was like in the billions, right? And what General Sheldon wanted to do is he said, I need to get a handle on this, and I need. He wanted a unified medical command that wasn't run through a civilian assistant secretary. He wanted a 4-star that reported to the Secretary of Defense and to him, so he could control the budget. There was that. Or he was getting beat up because all the retirees were saying, why am I paying? I thought I was supposed to get health care for life, and my TRICARE runs out at 65, and then I have to pay. What's going on? And so he chose TRICARE for life. So I was part of a small group at the Joint Staff that pushed TRICARE for life through and got it passed in a bill and into law and become health care for life.
Most veterans today probably don't appreciate how difficult that was.
Yeah, it was difficult. It was the price tag.
Was that the number one obstacle?
The price tag was, yeah. There was some horse trading that was happening above my level.
Of course.
I'm not going to say that Mississippi has the Riverine Operation Facility down in Mississippi because of that, but Trent Lott was the senior senator, and he represented Mississippi. But there were a lot of other things that were happening. It was there was a The one thing a lot of people don't know is that all the opposition was we never promised it. We never promised health care for life. And literally it came down to an advertisement that the Army put into a magazine. It was about this big, a little clip. And it said, you join the military, serve 20 years, get health care for life. There you go, written right there. We didn't find it. Somebody else mailed it to us and said, this is the contract. And it wasn't just verbal, it was written.
Yeah.
And
that was the deciding factor.
That was the factor that yes, we need to do this. The other factor was that everyone, healthcare. Everyone said, yeah, you said we get health for life. From retired 4-star generals down to E7s that did 20 years. They were like, you said I'd get health care for life, and now I'm going to become Medicare eligible, and I don't have, and now I got to buy supplemental insurance just to cover the gap. Why is TRICARE not covered? So that's the way it's set up. Medicare is the primary payer. TRICARE is the secondary payer. Covers the gap. I think it worked out well. I have to tell you, I just signed up for it, so it's like coming back around. Never thought I'd come to a time where I would benefit from it.
Oh, there you go.
How the world turns.
Yeah, but that was the joint staff. It was interesting. The real quick story I talked to you about Fayetteville and my experiences. When I was there, I went to an event. I was in civilian clothes, and General Sheldon's from here, and so there's this event, and we're in the hors d'oeuvre line, and this guy says to me, how are you doing? I said, good. I said, I work. And what do you do? I work for General Sheldon. Oh, you serve in the military? Yeah, I do. And he said, where were you stationed? I told him. And he said, he goes, what do you think of Fayetteville? I said, the best thing North Carolina could do is move Fayetteville out of the state. He goes, ah. I said, by the way, what do you do? He goes, I'm the governor of North Carolina. And I was like, and
nice.
It got back to General Sheldon, and I got a come here, Lorraine. And
Nice.
he said, he taught me a lesson, which is, and hopefully you guys noticed it when I sat down. I said, so what'd you do and what'd you do? Right? Always ask first before you make a stupid statement. And I always look back at that and go, yeah, that wasn't the smartest thing I could have done. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
who among us hasn't, gone to
Said something dumb to a governor.
Ice cream social and insulted an entire state to its leader
And a city. And honestly, I'll tell you, I've come back to Fayetteville a lot.
Like
It's
today.
come a long way.
It's come a long way. It has come a long way. But you have to remember where we were. We were also here. We talked about it. We were here. When we were here, there was the mass shooting at the Italian restaurant. There were a lot of things that were happening in the community. There was a lot of unrest. And this is, we were like, okay, what are we doing here? But anyways,
So
that said,
So you were with General
move
Sheldon
on.
for a year?
a little over a year. Yeah, as a fellow. As his, we worked. I worked medical, and I worked in the J4 and the Joint Staff. Have you ever worked in the Pentagon?
No, I avoided it like
Avoided
the
it.
plague successfully.
I've been to the Pentagon twice, and I always when I'm leaving, I always say, okay, where's my debriefing that I need to tell everybody never come, because it was a
I had G2. I already knew.
yeah, it wasn't bad. Being on the Joint Staff wasn't bad. Being on a service staff would be terrible, because we would go on Fridays and say, hey guys, I need to have this answer back to the chairman by Monday. I know it's Friday afternoon. I'll talk to you Monday morning. You gonna have it for me? Thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then I'd leave and go for the weekend, and they would be like, then they'd have to work through the weekend.
Been
But-
there, done that. I'm good.
Yeah. But I mean, it wasn't. It was great people. I'm sitting in this office, and there's this lieutenant commander, and I'm like, it was a major, and we're talking about what'd you do? I was the XO, or the fire support officer, on a destroyer or something. I'm like, I flew her back. I flew patients around,
Hey,
but I mean,
your service man.
Let
Yeah.
me tell you about this time I paid $8,000
for a jet fuel.
Have you ever
in Greece.
Have you ever bought jet fuel and put it on your personal line? Think of the points you would get for it.
Oh, nowadays I know there was no
Yeah,
points.
I know back then.
Yeah. But Joint Staff was good, and then really, and my follow-on assignment was to SOCOM, and I was very involved when I worked there. I'm very involved in understanding the budgeting process and the financial process and the different major force program buckets, especially
P11,
medical.
P11 money and
P11, P8, P8's medical, P11 SOCOM.
Yep.
What can be done, what can't be done. I spent a lot of time with the lawyers at the Joint
Yeah.
Staff. Just talking to them. Like,
colors of money.
yeah, tell me about the colors of money. Because I already knew going down, the surgeon that was there said, I want to figure out how to bring more medical money, more MFP 8 money into MFP 11 programs. And so that I went down to SOCOM and went through all of our funding.
Line by line. Yeah.
Like what can, what can't, what do we have an opportunity for, and then we went to kept pulling MFP 8 money into SOCOM for things that were not soft unique, making the argument MFP 11 can only be used for soft unique
Soft
things.
peculiar.
Yeah, there you go. Look at you. And so I was like, okay, this is non-soft peculiar. This is MFP 8 money, and then started to really push that into from SOCOM down into the components.
Because it's all about OPM, other people's money.
You betcha.
And learning how to do that right.
Yeah.
Especially the higher star headquarters you're working in, the more it all just comes down to liability. I mean, you're protecting that GO from liability.
Yeah.
By doing the right things.
Yeah, and we had the SOCOM medical community had run really pretty lean, and it was like, all right, how do we do this? And this was I showed up in June of 2000.
Yeah.
The commander at SOCOM was a guy by the name of Pete Schumacher, and I can remember, and I had been pretty busy, and it was sort of a time you had everybody. The guys sitting next to me that were new accessions that came in, he would talk to everybody new. They were coming out of BAT, and they were coming out of the groups, and they were 160th, and he goes, listen, guys, this is take a big deep breath. This is take a little break, spend time with your family. This is not we're happy com. And then he pointed towards CENTCOM, and he goes, and there's SADCOM.
Across the street. And this is before 9/11, too.
SADCOM. Oh, yeah. Pre-9/11. This was like, we were like this.
Even then.
Sleepy Hollow back then, yeah. And I'll never forget it. And then, so I went into, that was my focus. And then, obviously, on 9/11, everything changed.
Was there, from Air Mobility Command to working with General Shelton, and now down at SOCOM, going line by line through money, and I could never do that. Was there a point where you were like, man, I really wish I was back in patient care?
So while I was going line by line, I was moonlighting at Tampa General Hospital in their coronary care unit and their transplant unit.
Keeping your license active, too.
I would work, my son, when I see his teeth, I go, you know what those teeth are? You know why you got such beautiful teeth? Because I work nights at Tampa General. But no, I worked 2 evenings a week and then 2 weekends a month. My wife was a reservist. So she was flying. She was working one weekend as a reservist, and then she was flying the other weekend. And after she came home a couple of times, and I'm on the couch drinking a beer. She's like, I think you need to go get a job. And I was like, yeah, I guess I will. So I started to moonlight, which was probably one of the best things I could have done to maintain my clinical skills. One of my best stories about working at Tampa General, and he's passed now and is public. General Schwarzkopf lived in Tampa. I came in one night, and they said, you've got patient in room 1. And normally I had 2 patients, ICU, that were side by side. And I was like, you're only giving me 1 patient? And there was no name on the board. And
it didn't say Storm and Norman on there?
No, nothing like that. And I opened the door very, very quietly, and I go, General Schwarzkopf. And he said, you know me? And I said, I'm the military guy who moonlights up here. That's why I think I got assigned to you. Anyways, he and I spent 3 12-hour shifts together. He's the one who talked me into getting out of the military. We stayed in touch. We were pen pals. I would write him and ask him his advice and questions. But it was at a point I was a lieutenant colonel. I was coming up. It was probably 2003, 2004. But I was coming up on my fourth year at SOCOM. And it was and the Air Force had said, we want to send you to Grand Forks, North Dakota to take a flight, which in the Air Force a flight is like a lieutenant captain's level.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really low. Flight, squadron.
Below squadron, so
Yeah. And I said, I remember the detailer. I said, at that time I was the deputy surgeon at SOCOM. I said, I'm the deputy surgeon at SOCOM. I did the planning for our first incursion into Afghanistan, and then I did the planning for Iraq. And you want to put me in charge of having lieutenants tell me that they're ticked off they have to work this weekend? I said, my son lives in Tampa. My first wife had moved to Tampa so he could be close after 9/11. I said, what are you doing? I said, I'll work somewhere else in the hospital, in medical. And they were like, no. They said, the senior detailer said, Lieutenant Colonel Lorraine, you served your nation well. It's time for you to retire. I said, you made the toughest decision of my life, the easiest. I'm out. And I gave him 1 year. That was at the same time, the same window of time. I had just taken care of Schwarzkopf. I went back and forth with him. And he was like, hey, you know what? I had a pretty robust family life, but once you make 06, your life is not yours, and then if you make 07, it's not yours, and then through on, he said, Jim, you're doing really well. He goes, get out. And it was the best thing I ever did because it led to another, that timing, had that timing not worked, not happened that way, I would never have been the founding director of the U.S. SOCOM Care Coalition. And helped thousands of people.
With everything that you've done in these increasingly important positions throughout your career, it seems that offer that you got for Grand Forks, or not offer,
more of an ultimatum.
That assignment that you were given to Grand Forks.
They even called me back
and that
3 days in because the Air Force personnel guys were out on a team building thing or whatever, the Air Force
doing trust falls.
I guess so. Yeah. And anyways, they weren't there, and I couldn't file my I couldn't sign my
reclama or whatever.
Yeah, and so they called me and said, "Listen, you got a 7-day out. You don't sign something in 2 days. We're going to hit you with orders, and you're going to go or you're going to get out at 19." Yeah. So here's why it happened.
That seems like a slap in the face.
So let's go back to Keesler. There was a nurse that worked there. Who I will not mention her name. Anyways, we didn't have a great relationship. She was my detailer.
Yeah.
There was no love. And I hadn't talked to her since 1987.
15 plus years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is, and I knew, and I was like, is this Bubba? And she goes, yep. She called me Lieutenant Colonel. She goes, it's Lieutenant Colonel. And I was like, well, I'm a Lieutenant Colonel too.
It's going to be like that, huh?
Yeah. Anyways, so in the end, like I said, God has a plan. And I'm a true believer. The fact that I still have my foot is a God moment. The fact that this happened when it happened is a God moment for me. If not for that, if those things hadn't happened, which you can't predict.
You can't script that.
You can't. And then if that hadn't happened, it would never have. I would never have gone on to. Like I said. I was given a year. I went out the year. This was 04, May of 04. I did my last deployment to Iraq. Came home. At the time when I was in Iraq, we were dealing in 03. We were dealing with the fact that somebody had set up an aeromedical evacuation system, a long-range aeromedical that was so efficient that you couldn't keep track of guys would get wounded. They would get wounded in Bagram, or they would get wounded in Baghdad. They'd be moved through the air, the rotary system, the medical system, onto a bird, into Germany, out of Germany, back to the United States, before the families could get notified that they got wounded. And it was happening in SOF a lot.
I mean, it's kind of a good problem to have in a sense.
Yeah, and so what was happening was there was a lot of morale issues.
Right.
Because the families were like, why didn't you tell me he got wounded? Well, because when he hit the ground in Ramstein, somebody handed him a cell phone, which we didn't have back in the day, and they said, here, call your family and tell me you're okay. And they call their family and say, hey, I'm okay. And then the families were saying, what the heck is going on? The system wasn't set up for the families to travel, even for the most severely wounded.
Yeah.
But they were already there. So before the commands could even start to get stuff done, the families were moving to Walter Reed or going to Ramstein. And it was number one, it was not the right thing to do for our families, but it was really tough. And so when I came back, the command was like, we've got to get a handle on it. The other thing that was happening was if you were in SOF and you got wounded, you were moved home, you went to Walter Reed, and then you went into the service systems. If you were a SEAL, you went into the Navy system. If you were a Green Beret, you went into the Army system. And the services were like, you're wounded, you have these issues, you're medically discharged, you're medically retired, bam, you're out. And the commands were like, well, wait a minute, we want him to come back. We'll take him back. We'll take him back in.
Because SOCOM is a service too.
Yeah, well,
Right,
yes. Well,
right.
we have service-like responsibilities.
I understand. But this rub is not new.
No, it's not new. And so while I was at the Care Coalition, just a side story on that, while I was at the Care Coalition, they had these things called the Warrior Games. So you're Invictus of it, right? So they had the Warrior Games. And
just wrapped a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and they had Army team, Navy team, Air Force team, Marine Corps team. And everybody who the Care Coalition was taking care of were like, I want to be on SOCOM's team. And I don't want to be, the SEALs were like, I want to be on the Navy team. I want to be on your team. And so I went, and one of my things that I treasure the most at the Care Coalition was I got the services, DOD, to recognize SOCOM as a service.
Nice.
And so that's why SOCOM has their own team.
Good.
And I was like, I wanted to pick, they said, what color T-shirt do you want? I said black. They were like, black's taken by the Army. I said, okay, gray. I want gray T-shirts. That's what they have now.
Nice.
So to go, I don't know how I got off track, but why do the services do that? Why do people do that to you? But had all that not happened, back to the God moment, had all that not happened, I would never have been able. I would never. So we came back. They were trying to figure out how everything gets through. The commander said, we have to have a program that takes care of the wounded, ill or injured. He said, and so he said, let's stand up something. I was working on it as the deputy surgeon. I was one of the members of the committees looking at it, trying to form something. And then as soon as the manpower guys said, we're going to make it a civilian position, I was like, I'm out. I went to one of the guys who worked for me and said, you're going to go to those meetings from now on. He goes, why? You're the one. I said, oh, no, they're going to make it a civilian position. And I applied for it. I was one of 400, and I got the job. And then the rest after. So that was SOCOM. That was my last deployment was tough. Last deployment was with a task force, a SOCOM task force. Mm-hmm. And this is the band. I'll never forget that kid.
Tell us about your ID bracelet.
Yeah, his name's Nate Stahl. He was a young, untabbed private in the regiment. We had been in. I was there only a few days, and he had always been around the med shed. He was around the med shed, nice kid, but nobody really knew him. He was relatively new to the battalion. Had gone over. I found out a little bit more. Anyways, he was in the vehicle behind. moving between Ramadi, going to TQ, and ID, and a couple of the guys. Matter of fact, Mikey, who I still stay in touch with, we just couldn't do anything for him, and it had the ceremony, everything, recognition. He was the only one killed. I wrote a letter to his mom, because. And she wrote me back and she said my son wasn't really known. She sent me a bracelet. She said, "Would you wear this?" I said, "I'll never take it off." And I've been through the tin one, and now I moved to the to the always take it off when you go through TSA.
The only time is TSA. And MRIs.
And MRIs, yeah, which I had yesterday. Yeah,
Me
exactly.
too.
Yeah, did you?
Hey.
Yeah. So
That was me.
yeah, so it was really a for that. It was traumatic. There was some other things that happened. I just had I had an appointment yesterday 2 days ago with the VA. I had seemed like my hand only opened that much. Like I could really, if you hand me a beer glass, I can't pick it up. I'd fallen out of a helicopter in Ramadi. 47, got shot at, did some maneuvers. I fell out. Face first. I literally went face, hands, body. Weapon, everything was destroyed. Everything was up, and I came back. And the way I fell out, I pulled the door gunner's. I pulled his pelters. I pulled everything out of the wall, going out. I had gotten on and I went to go hook my monkey tail in,
monkey suit. Yeah.
and because I had been. You know why I was there? It's high speed. Don't know if I can tell you, but I was delivering flu shots, flu vaccine, high speed. Sorry. and it was the last stop that we had. We had flown all the way up to Mosul.
That's
come
usually
down,
how that works.
and it was the last stop. And I went in, delivered. We came back out. Nothing was going on, and I went to clip in, and before I could clip in, we lurched up. And it sort of got knocked off, and I was grabbing the gunner, who I'd gotten to know by that time, and I'm trying to get it in, and then the next thing I know, there is fire there's like rockets, and then they're blowing flares like crazy, and we're rocking all over the place. And I still don't have I'm into the wall, into the hydraulics. I'm into the gunner. I'm back into the hydraulics. I'm back into the gunner, and. Finally, the last they jerked. They went backwards, and when they went backwards, I was like, "Oh, everything was going that way," and I went and I was grabbing at anything, pulled his head, and then they took off. They left. They flew back to Balat. Buddy of mine shows up at the aircraft and he goes, "Where's Lorraine?" Well,
You're -1.
The gunner has not left the station, rightly so. Has no comms.
He has no way to communicate. Yeah.
They're like, "What do you mean we lost somebody?" Well, they had no. He was like the doc. He goes, "The guy with the vaccine." The pilots. I'm getting this third hand from the guy who was supposed to pick me up. I mean, the guy with the vaccines that was there on and off. I go, yeah. He's on. He fell out
Overboard.
and we got back in. The commander at the time. Anyways, I got treated. My thumb was like over here. And got treated.
It's not supposed to happen.
No. And I'd said, "Oh, listen, I'm not going to go outside the fence. This is my last." And everybody in my office was like, "Yeah, right." I said, "No, I'm just going to do medical support. This is my last time."
You're never supposed to say last. Don't ever do that.
Yeah. So that I came home from that and then retired. And my son said, "I've never seen somebody cry so much in a retirement." I said, he said, "Murph, I absolutely loved my time.
Yeah,
Absolutely loved my time." I didn't know that a month later, 2 months later, I'd get selected to run the Found the Care Coalition. Yeah. And literally, the day that I retired, I left on Friday, came back on Monday, still had my badge from when I was on active duty. It still worked. Went through the turnstile. Instead of going right to my surgeon's office, I went left to an office that they had given us to get started. Holy cow! I had security police.
I was gonna say somebody somewhere noticed.
Yeah, they did. I went over and I knew I had been there so long. I'd been there 5 years as active duty, and I knew everybody. And they were like, "Colonel Lorraine, you're supposed to turn that in." I said, "I don't know. It worked. I figured if it didn't work, I'd go to you guys, but it worked. I figured you just switched it over." And they were like, "Negative." And so we got started at the Care Coalition that way. I don't know if you ever heard of General Doug Brown. Yeah. So he was the commander at the time.
Yeah.
He had the vision. Brilliant guy. He said, "I want to take care of the soft wounded, ill, or injured and their families. They volunteered multiple times. It's now time for us to take care of them when they need help." He had also had experience with. He'd been up to Walter Reed. He had seen the wounded. He had people saying, "I want to help," but they couldn't. There was no way for them to help, whether it was civilians or nonprofits or other people that wanted to provide something. And he said, "I just need somebody to help navigate this." And I remember I went up to see him at the day that I started with a new badge. I had a good badge.
Right.
And I remember walking into his office, and he was sitting by his desk signing some things, and I stood there, and he goes, "Hey, have a seat." I said, "Okay." And I said, "Sir, I just thank you for hiring me. I just wanted, what's your direction?" He said, "I want you to go out and find all the wounded, ill, or injured from post 9/11 of ours, and I want you to advocate for their life." And I was like, "Yes, sir." And I'm sitting there like this, and he goes down and he starts signing papers again. And he looks up at me and he goes, "What are you waiting for?" I said, "God, sir." Got up and I walked out. And I said, "Come back." I came back. We had a really small, like 3 of us. Oh, the other instructions that he gave me through his staff was, "Lorraine, the staff of no more than 6 people. You get 6 people. That's it. 6 people. SOCOM. To advocate and coordinate services for all the wounded, ill, or injured from 9/11 to now, June of 2005.
Across multiple services too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
joint. And we sat down and I said, "Listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go find them all. We're going to find everybody. Let's work through personnel, find out who is wounded, ill, or injured, where they are. Let's go find them. Social media, whatever it takes to find them." So we found them, found all but 2. Started to spread the word, and then started to grow it. When I left, we had 6,800 wounded or injured. We had started to creep a little bit into cancers and things like that. We were doing more and more. We were by that time. The growth was I had 35 people, which was not, General Brown was not happy. And then even to this day, I see him every year. We get together, but he'll go, "I told you 6 people. 6 people." I said, "Sir," he goes, "How many did you have when you left?" I said, 35.
6 times 6.
Yeah. And he was like, and anyways, he laughs. One of the things I love that he says is, I took SOCOM. I stood up. We accepted the Global War on Terrorism mission. I grew the command by this many people. We executed missions all over the world. Blah 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 blah. And what do people remember me for? The Care Coalition. And I said, "Is that bad?" And he goes, "No, I think that's awesome."
Yeah.
And I think so. As we grew that, if not for being told I needed to get out, the window of time, I would never have been in the right window had that not happened.
Right.
So it goes back to the God moment.
Yeah.
And then that has sort of put me on the relationships I have from the Care Coalition and the people that I know from the Care Coalition, and the people that today, there's a young man, Matt Drake, who was a PSYOPer, who was in a vehicle-based IED, and everybody in his vehicle except for him were killed. He was the only one, and the medics, I had met the medics that picked him up. They thought he was dead. they thought he was an expectant, and they treated him like that until he got back. And then he was treated, came back, was at Walter Reed. General Brown went over to see him and was like, and the family was like, holy cow. This was right as we were standing up as the Care Coalition. And he said, here's your first guy. And when you look at now, 2 weeks ago, there's a post on social media from Matt, and he's a dad of two kids, and he lives independently, and he has a life. The expectation was he will never live independently. His parents will have to take care of him. They were making preparations to have him live in their garage, and that was going to be his mom's life, was to take care of him, which she still does, but not to the extent that. And when you look at that, you go, holy cow, this kid has a life.
Yeah.
You know? And what we did, and he's a perfect example, we didn't go, he wasn't moving forward in the traditional medical structure of the military. And so we went to a place called Quality Living Incorporated out in Nebraska, which was for mild to severe brain injuries. And they would teach him how to become living independently. And there's a lot of trauma with that, you know, when you have somebody who's got a severe brain injury, who is not aware of a lot of things, and all of a sudden they gain the awareness. You know, somebody said, why is that happen? And I said, well, because they've eaten from the tree of life. They all of a sudden gain knowledge, and they go, I'm not what I used to be. And then that's devastating for them.
Yeah.
And then they have to work through that in their life.
So it's the next layer.
The next layer, right? So you go, oh, good, you live independently, you're doing great. Now you have awareness. Anyways, so we, you know, Care Coalition built that with an incredible team. Sharon Henderson, who was my right-hand person, she took care of so many people. Had a guy, and they now fund, but he came to me and he said, I got a call from somebody, and they said, I've got this guy who owns a boat and he wants to take veterans out on the boat. I said, okay, sounds good, I'll talk to him, right? And I said, how many people can you get on your boat? Because 10. It's got a crew of 6. I said, how big of a boat do you have? So he sends me this picture, and it's this enormous yacht that's based on the British Virgin Islands. Because I want veterans to go out. I want soft guys to go out with their families, and I want it to be therapeutic. So I put a military family life consultant on the boat with them. They would go down, all paid for by the thing, and it was really therapeutic.
Yeah.
When the lawyers got a copy of the picture, they were like, "Oh my God, what are we doing?" Anyways, I said, listen, I did everything by the rule, didn't violate any laws or regulations, and yeah. But the point is that we did everything from advocating for brain injury centers to advocating for spinal cord injured Green Berets who will never walk again or would never breathe again on their own to go get stem cells treatments in Portugal. And things that we were looking outside of the norm, like, okay, what can improve their quality of life?
Yeah.
And that gets me to like where we are at America's, you know, my focus is how do we improve the quality of life for all veterans across the United States?
Yeah.
Okay.
Using Care Coalition as a standard.
We will get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But how long were you at the Care Coalition?
6 years. Yeah.
So
11. I left in 11.
2011.
Yeah.
Why did you leave the Care Coalition?
So my wife was active duty Air Force. She was on orders. My wife was a nurse practitioner, and she ran the SOCOM clinic at MacDill. And I was at the Pentagon. So while I was at the end of my time at SOCOM, from 2009 to mid 10, to late 10, I was the special assistant to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mullen. So I would work Monday in Tampa. I'd get on a plane and fly, and I'd work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for the chairman, standing up a program and being his special assistant for warrior and family care. And then on Thursday night, I'd fly home. I'd work at SOCOM Friday and Saturday, to have Sunday off with the family, and then I'd do it again. So I was doing this. My wife was working at, ran the clinic at SOCOM, and she developed adult onset epilepsy. Had a grand mal seizure. I learned about it when I was at the Pentagon. I was in the office. I was in one of the rare places where you can get a signal, which is on the outside ring. And my phone rang, and it was her deputy who said, "We found Becky. I don't know what happened, but she's not responsive." So that changed everything. She then medically retired because she had severe epilepsy. She couldn't drive, so there was no mobility. I was still working, but I was staying home more. And she said, I just need to move. I need to go home to Aiken, South Carolina, to her family, because they can drive me to where I need to be. She can get me to VA appointments. All that was happening at the same time. She was discharged. It was just a devastating to go from having this really high level career that she had to you're done.
Yeah.
Like that. And so I said, I had somebody tell me, nobody's ever quit working for the chairman by email, which I did, and I regret it. I should have called him and should have talked to him in person. So all that happened. I stayed working for SOCOM because I could do it remotely. I took care of her, and then she developed a pretty aggressive form of breast cancer. And then I called Admiral Olson. Eric Olson was the commander at the time, and said, "Sir, I'm sorry." And the other guy I called was Admiral McCraven, who was getting ready to take over, and he had said, I want you to stay and keep growing it." I said, "I'm sorry, I can't. I got to take care of my wife." And so that took me in 2011 to Aiken, South Carolina, which is right over the border from Augusta, Georgia. Yeah, that's how I got there. So, and my wife's doing great.
Good.
Retired, somewhat epilepsy-free, and cancer-free for now probably, I think, going on 12 years, 11, 12 years.
That's awesome news.
Yeah, it is good news.
All right. Well, let's take a break.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back and talk about AWP.
That sounds good. Yeah.
So, America's Warrior Partnership.
Yeah.
How long after the CARE Coalition did this come upon you?
The next day. I left.
Well, that's fast.
A whole day.
Yeah. It wasn't expected. Becky was living in Aiken, recovering chemotherapy. I went through this departure ceremony, which was fantastic. I'll never forget the day. Admiral Olson was doing it. He said, "I got to go." The aide said, "You got to go take a phone call." He came back. He was pretty smiley. He goes, "I can't tell you what it was, but you'll hear about it later." It was the day we got Bin Laden.
Mm-hmm.
And so I left then, and I drove home. And on my drive, a person that I knew who was running a nonprofit in Augusta, Georgia, called me, and she said, "Hey, would you be interested in? I'm going to go take another job. Would you cover while we have a change?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." I didn't have my plan was to go home, take care of my wife, go work in a hospital, 12-hour shifts, 3 days on, 4 days off, play golf, and so I told her, "Yeah, I'll talk to their board." Well, on the drive, I talked to the board, and by the time I got home, I had a job, and so I get home, take care of Becky, blah blah blah. I go, "I got a job." She goes, "No." I said, "Yeah." I said, "It's running a little nonprofit. Short period of time, I'm gonna be done." Yeah, that was
Famous last words.
Yeah. That was so that was 11, 26, 15 years ago. Short period of time. So I went in. I stepped in to a local program called Augusta, what was called the Central Savannah River Area Wounded Warrior Care Project.
You can't fit that on a coin.
No, can't fit it on a street And on top of it, I didn't know what the Central Savannah River area was. So it was really tough, which is the greater Augusta area, Central Savannah River area. was Aiken. It was South Carolina and Georgia together. And so I came in, took over. The focus was bring the community together and get them to talk about serving veterans and creating an environment within Augusta where not only would DOD send veterans, recovering people to the hospital at Eisenhower, but to Augusta's unique because it had at the time a medical center, and then it had a 2-campus VA medical center, and then a state level research entity, research hospital. Sorry about that. State level research hospital, and there's only 3 locations like that. One of them is Washington, D.C., one of them is Augusta, Georgia, as an example. So the idea was, why aren't more people coming to Augusta to recover and to use the services, etc. So that's what we were doing. At the time, there were like 60 people that would come to these quarterly meetings. And my first meeting, I said, so tell me what you do. Went around to all these organizations, and they told me what they did. And then they would tell like a little success story that they chose to do. And I was like, oh, there's a link here. I said, do me a favor, on a piece of paper, write down the initials of the person that you took care of. And it was how they did such great things and took care of the guy. And they were all serving the same guy. Nobody knew who they were. So all of their efforts were towards this one guy.
Right.
Was the success.
I mean, good for him.
Oh, great for him, yeah. And so all this was happening. And then another group called and they said, "Hey, we've got this grant to do homeless veterans. Would you help us?" And you can receive funding from it to do work. And our job was to do outreach. I had met. She's a co-founder of the organization, Cherie Tham. I had met her at a VA stand-down meeting, and she knew social services inside and out, and I knew the military rehabilitation space really well. So we started to work together. She took 159 homeless veterans in the central Savannah River area down to 8 in 18 months. And the way we did it was the same thing we did with SOCOM. I said, let's go find all the homeless veterans. Let's not wait for them to come, ask for help. Let's go find them, build a relationship with them, advocate for them, and then get them connected to holistically. Let's not just do housing. Let's do housing, education, healthcare, internships, employment.
The whole thing. Yeah.
The whole
Homelessness
thing.
is rarely about not having a house.
Yeah, exactly. But the start was go find them all. Does that sound familiar? Like somebody said to me, go find them all, and then advocate for them for life. It's the same thing that we did at SOCOM, which was go find them all and advocate for them for life. Once we did the homeless piece and we were clicking along, and by the way, we weren't doing the homeless programs in Augusta were doing the homelessness housing. The schools were doing the education. The unemployment offices were doing the placements, but we were advocating for the veteran all the way through the system,
walking them through the processes because it's multiple.
Exactly. So we said this isn't transactional. This is relational. We're going to build a relationship with you, so you trust us, and then we'll connect you to the resources, and you just keep moving. And then if you have a problem as you go forward, then just reach back to us, and we'll advocate for you, free that roadblock. So we did this, pivoted to education. It's not about going to school. It's about graduating, whether it's a certificate or whether it's a degree. If you've got a problem with your car that's a barrier to you getting to class, we'll help you fix your car. If you got childcare issues, we'll solve for this childcare. Just stay in school and complete. That was our focus on the education piece. And then it must have been about 12. Wounded Warrior Project came to us and said, hey, we've got 21 headquarters offices throughout the United States. We'd like you to build community-based programs where we don't have programs. And so we built 9 programs throughout the United States, everything from Tacoma, Washington to Buffalo, New York, and Panhandle of Florida and Orange County, California.
Still under the Savannah Greater
No,
River
no, yeah,
Valley.
sorry, yeah. So we went. We did the marketing change. So I shortly after I took over, I decided to stay longer than I should have. I changed it to the Augusta Warrior Project, AWP, and then AWP. When we started to branch out and do more communities, Augusta was one of the programs. My chairman of my board, brilliant guy named Tom Matthews, said he sat down with a thesaurus and a glass of wine, and he was like, "All right, I want to have an AWP. I want it to be that. That's the acronym. So what should we call it?" He named it America's Warrior Partnership. Because really, what we do is we were a partner.
Yeah.
We were there, and so we built all these programs under America's Warrior Partnership, and then
Still maintaining those same principles of
Yeah.
Building the relationship.
Mhm.
Then those building blocks of
Yeah. and I will
getting them a home,
I will
getting them
send
an
you a
education.
book. We wrote a book, like it's a real book. Like it sells out on Amazon, and I'll send it to you so you can put it up. It's a community integration book. It's about this big. It'll fit somewhere. I didn't bring any swag. Sorry. So we wrote a book, and the basis of the book was 4 steps: connect, go find the vet, build a relationship with them, educate the vet about opportunities to improve their quality of life, advocate for them when they hit a roadblock, and collaborate with everybody who can help. And so we ended up becoming a broker. We know the vet, we build a relationship, and we know the resource, and we do the connection. And our focus, though, is on the veteran, is building it. You get a lot of nonprofits, and they'll say, "Oh, I can't work with you because it's HIPAA or it's PII or I can't share that information." Well, if I'm working with a veteran, you can. I don't have to. I can say I need you to help. And the other thing that we do, so in that, as we grew, we have 4 affiliate communities, which is Orange County, California, Atlanta, Greenville, South Carolina, and Buffalo, New York. And those are separately run nonprofits, and we provide them with technical assistance and advice and advocacy if they need it. And they don't, because they've grown from very small nonprofits to really powerhouses in their community.
Yeah.
And then we created these, we call them branches. Branches they're our employees, but they work in the community. They're from that community. So we have the state of Alaska. We have the Navajo Nation of Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. We have Indianapolis, Indiana, Panhandle of Florida, and the Permian Basin of Texas. And we started in those places for different reasons. Alaska, the state asked us if we would come up and be the offset. They're the state. They've got all the government programs. We were the non-government side. And then in the Permian Basin, they have, and they still have, like 60,000 unmet job, and they want to recruit veterans to come there. So it's how do you create an environment that families and veterans would want to come live there in the Permian Basin to do the gas and oil jobs that are out there and make a ton of money.
Yeah, the money's good.
Yeah, money's good. Money's good. The environment's a little, West Texas
It's rough.
is tough.
Yeah.
But they're making it nicer, and the community was like, we have to have more parks and things for kids and blah blah blah, and they've done a lot of work with that. Indianapolis, because the head of the Indianapolis asked us to come. The Navajo Nation, I went out to Navajo. This county is called Apache County. The non-tribal area said, "Hey, can you help us set up a program?" And honestly, we went out, and I was like, "You guys," there was nobody was willing to play nice with each other in the sandbox, and I was like, "Until you get that set, we're not the place to go." But during the trip, they took us into the Navajo Nation, which is on the northern edge of Apache County.
Right.
And I saw abject poverty, and I was like,
the res is it's terrible.
and the Navajo res it's like one of their core beliefs is don't try to improve stuff. Like if you got a house, put a patch on the house. If somebody gives you a new house, don't take it. Taste it with your old house. It's called their belief is embracing poverty. And so, but while I was there, with a chapter, I met with, so the way it's structured is chapter, agency, nation, right? But the chapters are relatively smaller, more of a clan. And I met with a couple of chapters, and they had about 60 veterans that were there. Older Vietnam era veterans down to brand new had gotten out. And I said, how many, of the post 9/11, half of them were post 9/11. How many use your GI Bill? None. I said, do you know what it is? Mm-mm. A couple did, and they said, we don't use it because there isn't any brick and mortar colleges within the res, or even close. You had to go out to Albuquerque, or you had to go to Gallup, or you had to go up to Flagstaff. Yeah. And they were like, we don't get the full housing allowance. I was like, but you get, and then I told the elders how much the GI Bill was worth, and they were like, why are you not using it? So we went into the Navajo Nation, and we have Navajo women that run it, because what I saw was, if you could use the benefits you've earned from the military service, it was generational changing, not just changing for yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and but it's real hard. So that area, my team hates it when I say this, but it's the tyranny of distance.
Yeah,
and it is so big and so barren. It takes you forever to get from one point to another. And then once you get there, the internet's not really good. The signals aren't really good. It's tough it's a different problem set to solve. So we have those communities, and that's what we run. Yeah. And then what we did was, I noticed that in communities, the communities knew who the veterans were, and they knew what they needed, but they didn't have the resources. And I had worked at a national level, and I knew all of the big veteran service organizations. I was friends with them, and even the ones that were wealthy, I knew that had done really well. I was like, how do I bridge between the community that knows the vet but doesn't have the resources, and the nonprofit or government agency that has the resources but doesn't know the vet? And so I created, it's called the network. My last tour in Iraq, I worked for this guy named under this guy named Stan McChrystal. And I was in Baghdad and Balad when he created the fusion cell. And I watched it grow, and I was like, we can do that. We can. And then instead of find, fix, and finish, I said find, fix, and save. Let's go find them, figure out where they are, and then let's save them. Let's save them from themselves. So we founded it. It's called the network. The network, we have 1,200 community partners and national partners, and we go out and find vets. We send them messages. We do a lot of marketing. I always say I think we're more of a marketing organization than a service organization.
Yeah.
We've got great service, but marketing stuff. Marketing to veterans, trusting to them. So for us,
they're a salty bunch.
They are, and they're untrusting, because one of the things you see is if you have a veteran and they went to 3 or 4 organizations that said they would help them and they didn't, they won't go to the next one.
Yeah. We have we have a recurring theme on this show that we talk about, and that is the veteran industrial complex. I know we didn't come up with that term, but we do talk about it often.
You guys are right. I used to call it the homelessness industrial complex.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Yeah.
In Augusta, we got to a virtual 0 for veteran. We got to 7 homeless vets, which you would say
statistically is almost like.
And the city was like, no, we're not going to. I said, pots and pans, hats and horns. Let's tell the story. And they were like, we're going to lose all the federal grants.
The spigot gets turned off.
And I was like, oh, you're killing me, right? But I said, okay, well, I don't disagree, because we do want to. Somebody else is going to come in. But you're right. It is. So for us, it was how do we cut the wheat from the chaff? How do I know what organization's doing good work and which ones aren't? I can do it by service. We do some work with Raymond James has a program for veterans called Valor, and they do a unique approach. Their veterans group within the company raises about $300,000, and then they distribute that to nonprofits. They use us to vet the nonprofits, and then we use the nonprofits to serve the vets, and then they get a report card. This one I sent 10 to, they helped 1. This one I sent 10 to, they helped 10.
Yeah.
They're the ones. They make the decisions. I don't. But it's a way to say what's working and what's not. We have a program that we started called "If You Know a Veteran, Tell a Veteran" about America's Warrior Partnership. And what that means is everybody knows a veteran who needs help. Mm-hmm. I got to get to that veteran. And so we gamified it. So if you join, scan the QR code, you get your own QR code, and then you build your team. We call it a pyramid of purpose. I know all of us were in the military, and we knew Amway. It is a pyramid, but you build a team of veterans who are going out and finding other veterans. And then you get to say, like I have 760 people within my pyramid. And of those 760, they've referred 120 people to AWP for services. 5 of them had thoughts of taking their life within 30 days of the phone call to us. Something like 12 needed housing. We break it out, housing, employment, and I get a report that says this is the impact that I made. And then the people that I recruited, they get their own report. And then the people that it goes up. So you can see this is the impact you made. The bottom line comes, the reason why we did it, I need to get to the veteran before they're in crisis. I can help them. I always say to people, I wish I knew you 6 months ago, because you've put yourself in a position right now that I can't get you out of, whether it's legal or whether it's medical or whether it's they attempted to take their own life. If I had known you 6 months ago, I would have taken care of all the things that were basically, and what we want to get to is we want to get a relationship with a veteran where they look and say, you care about me. You give a shit. Yeah.
It's the civil society. Another recurring theme we have here is, the VA is not going to help you. Like, it's not going to save you from yourself. It's a tool, and it has its place for certain things, but particularly the suicide crisis, like the VA is, we have to help each other.
We do, absolutely. And I know it's a little bit controversial also. We have to help each other. We have to be there for each other. But we have to say, this isn't cool. This isn't okay.
Yeah.
The people you leave behind,
you just transfer all that.
Oh my God. It's I hate to say, I don't, but it's probably the most selfish act you can ever take, because you're leaving the unknown to the family, and to your friends and friends who go. I've had friends. I've been like, I just talked to you 2 weeks ago. I just talked to you, and this was years ago. But I mean,
we all have them.
Yeah, and you go, well, why didn't you just say something? Well,
yeah.
I can. So, as a third party, we're there, but we don't see. So, like, when somebody comes to America's Warrior Partnership, we weave within the conversation a risk assessment on suicide. We don't come out and say, here, answer 3 questions.
Answer the following.
It's like woven into the thing, and so we screen everyone. Last year, we identified 256 people who were thinking about taking their life. 86% of those 256 didn't come to us for mental health. And most of the people that came of that 86, financial insecurity. People go, what's the biggest issue facing veterans today? Financial insecurity. They can't pay their bills. They're in such a hole that they feel they never can get out. If they have VGLI, that's a lifeline for their family. It's the most unselfish act you're ever going to take. I don't encourage anybody to do it, but I mean, you look at it and you go, how do we get ahead of this? And so for us, it's let's build a relationship before. By the way, it's Friday, which means this afternoon, my team was probably working 3 housing cases because evictions only come in on Friday afternoon.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, it's going to happen tomorrow. And you go, okay, how do we solve for this? And we have some really good partners. We've got a great group, and you should have him on. His name is Tom Deerline, TD Foundation. He's a civil affairs guy. Have you ever heard of him?
What's the name of the?
Tom Deerline, TD Foundation. So TD Foundation does emergency financial assistance through us, has to be a combat vet, and that has to have a child involved. We have another group called Pure Talk, and it's a company that helps us.
We're both Pure Talk customers.
Are you really?
We are.
High five. High five.
We've heard y'all advertise.
Good.
On,
Well,
on
yeah.
Clay and Buck.
With Clint. Yeah, Will and Buck with Clint
Clay and
Romachet.
Buck. Mhm.
Yeah, Clay and Buck. So Pure Talk's awesome. They have a program called Deeds Not Words. The Pure Talk founder is a Mac VSOC guy.
Yeah.
And so Deeds Not Words, they go, tell us what's going on, and it goes through us. If it's not if it's not as a result of the individual's own actions, if there's nobody else that can help, and if there's a long-term plan to move forward, it's not just a Band-Aid, it's got to be a long-term plan. Then they step in and they go, it vets through me. I go to them. Clint is the approval, Clint Romachet, and then from Clint it goes to the CEO, and then they come back and go, yes, we got it. The point is it takes everybody doing this.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is there's 17.5 million veterans in the United States. 9 million are enrolled in the VA.
Yeah.
Where's the others? Where are the others?
Yeah.
And how do I find them? And for us, it's if you know a veteran, tell a veteran.
Yeah.
By the way, the Pure Talk, you guys have seen the commercial with Mike Rowe.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, he knocked it out of the park for us. But also,
Guy has the best voice.
oh my gosh, yeah,
He's the best.
yeah, he is the best. And then you get he and Clint together. Clint's on our board, and Sal Junta is on our board. So we got a couple of recipients that are great spokespeople that help us. What I'm trying to do is to say, get the message out. If you know a veteran, tell a veteran about America's Warrior Partnership. You can volunteer. If you want to find purpose, go find other vets because you're going to save their buddy's life.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. Then that's why I'm here telling the story.
Yeah.
But I mean, this has been a great experience.
So
Good question, Jim.
for AWP, if there's a veteran listening,
Yeah.
or a veteran that knows a veteran,
Yep.
and they need some help,
Yep.
for whatever the case may be,
Yep.
how do they get a hold of AWP?
Yeah, just go to our website, americaswarriorpartnership.org, and there'll be I need help. And you click on that, there's a little web form that comes up, and then it goes to us, and we'll message you within immediately. Set up a time for us to talk. If you're a crisis, and we say if you're a crisis, then call. You'll call our number, and it's 24/7. So when our team is in the office, we're not a 24/7 organization, but we have a backup that will take crisis. And so if somebody comes in and they go, listen, I'm really thinking about taking my life, they do a great job of that. If they say, hey, I need some advice on my VA disability benefit, and you go, okay, great, can we talk to you on Monday? And then they set up a schedule, and then we call them back on Monday, and then we go through the process. And it's not just the veterans. Like I had a veteran come to me, and she said, hey, my aunt, her husband, who was a Vietnam vet, passed away, and they put the wrong diagnosis on the death certificate, so she's not eligible for disability indemnity and compensation.
Yeah.
And I went through it with my medical background, and I was like, yeah, you're right. Then there's he died of what they put it for didn't connect to the cancer that he had that was secondary to the
it matters.
right.
Yeah.
So we got that taken care of. We got the VA doc to document. We got the coroner to change the record. The woman got accepted, and now she. But it's things like that.
Yeah.
There are one of the best stories I love, and it's not high speed. Wounded Warrior Project took care of a veteran, helped him get his education, got him through all the process. He gets out, he graduates, he gets a job in the trades, right? Well, most of the time in the trades, you got to bring your own tools when you come. So he needed $378 in tools. And WWP said, we don't do tools. And I was like, okay, we got it. And so he's a D's Not Words guy. So we put the whole story, and then D's Not Words. And by the way, the other guy that chimed in was this guy who's really advocates for the trades. We mentioned his name. Oh yeah, Mike Rowe. $1,300. They gave the guy, I think it was $2,300, $1,300. They said, here's the tools. You're going to need the other money. Go out and do great things.
Seed money.
Yeah, but
go.
I mean, the only way we can help them is that guy reached out to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. And then and then the last thing I'll get off my soapbox is we work with everybody. So if you have a nonprofit up here and we're not partnered with them, we want to be partnered. Because if somebody comes in and says, I need X, like Valkyrie, I need X, and they're a match, I'll call them and say, here you go to them. They'll do what you need to do.
Because it's the network.
It's the network. It's a fusion cell. How do you get everybody working together, focused on the one thing?
You sound like a civil affairs officer.
Yeah. Well, the chairman of my board is Lieutenant General Dave Friedovich. He was the deputy commander of SOCOM. He's Green Beret, and I go, sir. He goes, what are we trying to do? I said, we're winning hearts and minds. We're going to do this by, through, and with. And he's like, oh, I love that. I'm like, that's what we're doing. But you got to get connected. And to your point about I've said to the VA, you guys are great, but in the community, if you talk to the VA hospital, they'll say, I'm the center of I'm the sun, and everything else revolves around. And I'm like, no, the veteran is the center, and we all revolve around it. Yeah. And what we're trying to do as a community
should revolve.
Should revolve. I said what we're trying to do in our community programs is be the gravity that holds everybody together, and that we're in sync. That's what we need to do. Yeah. And it's the one group that starts to echo over here, to start parts ways, and you're going, come on, let's get together. Yeah.
So, you've been with AWP through various name changes.
Augusta Warrior Project, America's Warrior Project.
Before that.
Oh, Central Savannah River. You need to say it. Central Savannah River.
No. So you've been with them for
15 years.
15 years.
Yeah.
Through all the different name changes and all the outreach and maybe shifting objectives but not changing focus.
Yeah.
For 15 years, where would you like to see AWP go in, I'll say the next 5, not the next 15, but in the next 5 years?
The next 5, I'd like to see us grow in our capacity to serve. I'd like to get more. So one of the things when I say we serve communities, we see companies as like we're the veteran serving nonprofit for Wells Fargo. So if you're a Wells Fargo employee and you're military connected, you come to us if you have an issue that, transmission's out in your car and you can't make it to work on a regular basis or whatever the barrier is, we'll solve for that. Same with Amazon. Same with JP Morgan Chase. So for us, it's to increase it. Ideally, I'd love to get a national brand that says, we're getting behind NovaVet Televet. We want our followers to join in on NovaVet Televet. Again, the only way we're successful is if I know the veteran ahead of the crisis.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, I need a brand that, or let's say the NHL, or let's say the NFL or the Major League Baseball to say, in my community, I want to do NovaVet Televet. And I want veterans to know that they can go to AWP for help, and they're going to go back into our community to solve the problem. And if the resources aren't there in the community, they'll bring national resources together. That's where I'd like to be. I'd like to, in the end, there's the big strategic thought that I have, and I've always been a sort of a North Star, and it's not just service. When I worked for Admiral Mullen, the statistic came out that only 22% of recruitable kids were eligible for military service. Mm-hmm. And I said, we have to recruit for the military against Division I schools, top schools, top employers. We have to compete with them. And I looked at it and said, when you look at all the resources that are given, really what we need to do, the best recruiter for the Department of Defense is a really strong VA. Really strong VA. I see veteran service as a national security effort, not as a domestic effort. It's a national security effort, because if we don't take care of the vets, they'll never tell their nieces and nephews and sons and daughters that you should ever serve in the military. But when you get them, if you get to the point 20 years from now where veterans go, the nation's got my back. Whether it's the VA or whether it's a community, the nation has my back. And you turn to your son or daughter and say, you know, the best thing you could do is join the military, because they're going to have your back for the rest of your life. And that's a great way to start off.
Yeah.
Just like that little piece of paper in the ad.
Just
all
like
those years ago.
all those, if you take care of them, they will join. You know, and it's beyond. It's bigger than just the GI Bill. It's a life contract that you join the military, and I have you for the rest of your life, and I'll advocate for you until you die. And if you need help, you can turn to me, and I'm going to take care of it.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love
that's the big North Star. But in order to get there, we have to serve. We have to sort of nug through this and get everybody working together.
Awesome. Well, the last question
Yeah,
then is from way back in the 80s
yeah,
when your mama told you that you were going to be a
So
nurse.
long ago.
yeah,
You were going to be a nurse because the economy was
yeah,
not doing well.
yeah.
All the way up to now, through all the trips to Somalia and the ring routes, all through
Falling out of helicopters.
all through Europe, and falling out of helicopters in Iraq,
Meeting a governor in North Carolina.
and insulting.
I did?
Insulting his fifth
His
largest
Royal
city.
High Highness.
Insulting his fifth largest city to his face. To where you are now with AWP.
Yeah.
If you could go back to 18-year-old you that just wanted to serve,
Yeah.
would you do it all again?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. I'd go back in, when people say thank you for your service, I say I'd go back in today. Without a doubt. If they'd take me, I'd go back in today. Military service, in my opinion, is a core function of our nation. When you look at the Constitution, there's only one thing that it calls for. It's a common defense. And so if we don't provide for that common defense, if we as a citizenry don't contribute, we won't continue to exist. So yeah, at 18 years old, I would join in a second. How about you?
Absolutely.
How about you?
Every time.
Yeah. We talk when you meet veterans. How many of them say, "I wouldn't do it"?
We've had one.
It was qualified. Yeah.
Well, we've had one that said no. We've had one that was qualified a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other
it's pretty good
60
odds.
or so.
That's a pretty good record
it's
right
nearly
there.
unanimous.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you get a young kid who's coming out of high school or even a graduate out of college, and they hear from a bunch of us who've all served in different roles and different experiences, heck yeah, I'd go back. That would have to make them go, what am I missing out on?
Yeah. And our one no, he's young, and we
Recently separated.
I'm convinced he's going to change his mind.
Yeah.
I hope so. Well, it's been great talking to you guys.
Jim, this has been fantastic.
You bet.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks.
So, what'd you think?
Really great guest.
Yeah, it was.
I was drawn in from the beginning when he started talking about his amputated foot. Like, I'm in.
Which we talked about off camera.
We did.
And that story is pretty wild.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can definitely see God's divine hand in his story. And he acknowledges that too.
Yeah. And from the very beginning, just like the lineage of service. His father was one of six brothers. All of them joined the service into World War II. Then I can't remember, but I think he said most of the children of those six found service-related jobs.
In one way or the other.
Yeah. Just wow.
Great family.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't really we've talked with other veterans who have kind of covered that time span. Scott Story, Mike McCusker, kind of covered that the '80s to the the early years of
Bob Charles too. Yeah.
and Bob Charles
Yeah.
into the post 9/11 years, the early post 9/11 years. But we hadn't really talked to any of them about, because they were not in Germany at the time that the wall came
Right.
down. That is, I mean, obviously what he was doing over there, flying all over the place, taking different patients to different locations for treatment, stuff like that. All that stuff is really cool and awesome. But part of his welcome to the unit, welcome to the military in divided Germany was, you're going to exchange some good money for East German marks, and we're going to make you support their economy a little bit. What?
Yeah.
That's wild. That is crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's charity.
I mean,
in a
sure.
sense.
I guess.
They needed it.
I mean, they certainly did, but what?
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing to me. Maybe, I mean, there may be a reason that I'm not thinking of
Probably not.
for why they
Probably
would do
not.
that, but I don't know, man. Another thing about his time in Germany. $8,000 in jet fuel on a credit card in the mid-'80s. How much do you think $8,000 in jet fuel would be converted for today's dollars?
Triple, quadruple.
I would think that's got to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking 40 years ago.
Yeah.
That's got to be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And he didn't even get points for
And
it.
he
'cause
was-
points didn't exist then.
And he was a senior lieutenant, junior captain. What do you think your wife would say?
He said he went down to the commander and was like, "Hey, sir, I got to do this voucher," and his voucher came with him. I'm just thinking to myself, man, if I ever was like, "Oh, I'll just put it on my personal card during travel," like,
You're eating it.
I would be getting a phone call.
You'd be eating that charge.
I mean, good on them for backing him up because he was doing
Yeah.
doing the right thing and
And
making
then
it.
AmEx wanted to up his limit.
Yeah, that's funny. For a fee, of course. Of course.
Man, he had a really good career, and I mean, despite the way it kind of ended with, initially the way it ended
I mean,
with a spiteful,
kind of come full circle.
yeah,
Somebody from early in the career
Yeah.
shows back up again.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you said at the beginning, to him it was all about service because of the family background,
Yeah.
and the thing is that he was taught, and that is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah.
Well, good service, life well lived. He's still got many years in him, of course, but
And now with the AWP,
yeah, the Care Coalition, which continues on. I think it's changed names now, but it still exists. And then the AWP.
that is. What did they have? 4 name changes?
At least 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Just growing a network like that over the years with the sole focus of being helping veterans, like not just raising awareness or
Contributing to the veteran industrial complex.
yeah, contributing to fundraising for whatever nonprofit, actually organizing a bunch of different elements for jobs, for education, for housing, for crisis centers, organizing all those things. And I mean, he had the experience because of what he had done for the Care Coalition, but man,
Yeah.
that is inspiring work.
Yeah.
That is inspiring work, Jim.
And we're happy to be at least loosely affiliated with him at this point now. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. Got anything else?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, you know what time it is.
I do. It's time for the free fire area.
It is indeed. This is something that I've been thinking about quite a bit over the last several years, and I don't know why. Is there an experience that you had during your career that you handled so poorly on a personal level with a coworker, peer, subordinate, whatever, that you handled so poorly that it has stayed with you?
Does it have to involve subordinates? Could it just be?
Well, okay, we'll say peer to peer.
I'll answer it this way, and you can tell me if it's admissible, Your Honor. It was at the very end of my career, I'm not going to get into high specifics here because I need to keep it a little vague. I was in a interview for a position that required me to speak through a curtain, so it was anonymized, if that's a word.
It is now.
And I answered the questions from the board in a very frank and candid way. And I could tell that the people, I didn't even have to be able to see them. I could just feel it at the edge in the air that they did not care for my very frank responses to their questions. Mm-hmm. And the results of this particular interview were that I did not get selected for the position, okay. Which at the time I thought was I was kind of butthurt about it at first, but again, in having retrospect now, everything worked out for the best.
No, it's not. Yeah, not quite what I mean.
I don't.
I'll tell you about the one that's been sticking with me, and then
okay.
You can say if you have something somewhat
okay.
comparable. Many, many moons ago, when I was a young man with a relatively full head of hair, pre-9/11.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, pre-9/11. When I was a young private, I think I was maybe an E2. There was another guy that I worked with, and he and I were pretty tight, and we hung out, played video games, worked well together. But he went out one evening and had a few too many adult beverages, and legally, by the way, he was a couple years older than me, and he got a DUI. This is the pre-9/11 era.
Zero defects.
Zero tolerance.
Yeah.
And he was going to get kicked out. And I remember being in the barracks, and I was passing him in the stairwell. And I mean, he got in trouble, so he was pretty much shunned. And I passed him in the stairwell, and he asked me for help with something. And I can't even remember what it was. It was so inconsequential. And I said, no, I can't do it. And he was like, well, man, I can't do this on myself. And I was like, well, you shouldn't have gotten a DUI then.
Yeah.
And never spoke to him again. He was still there. He said something to me in return that was colorful. And we never spoke again. He left the Army, I don't know, a few weeks later, whatever. But that is something that I still think about. And I was like, I handled that so bad. I mean, I was 19.
Yeah.
And yeah, that has always stayed with me. I did not handle that well.
Yeah.
Yeah. No idea where he is now or what he's doing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking of an example kind of in that vein. I mean, again, I'll be a little bit vague here, but when I came home from Afghanistan, I was definitely going through some mefloquine withdrawals, which was not good, along with what I didn't know at the time was, you know, some pretty bad PTSD and some other stuff. And I made some really poor choices, and alcohol was involved, of course. And you know, by the grace of God, I'm still here. But I probably did and said some things to people during that time of my life that I regret, and some of them I don't even necessarily remember, because I was definitely abusing alcohol during that period and not being a good leader.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Now I'm gonna think of something really good, you know, later on, and I'll text it to you, and you'll tell me I should have said it now.
That's the way it always works.
But that's how this works when you're in a hot seat.
When you're being put on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will meditate upon this, and we'll put it in the group chat.
No, we won't.
Group chat of 2.
All right. Well, this has been
Yeah.
this has been great.
It's good to be back in studio.
Good to be back in studio. Thank you all for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the conversation with Jim, and check out the AWP. If you know a veteran,
No vets.
that knows a vet,
Yep.
that knows a vet, that may need some help of the variety of ways that a human
Yeah,
being
sure.
could need help. Check them out.
We'll include some information on them in the show notes and the QR code on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, do all the things.
all the things.
All the things on all the social medias and all that jazz.
Yeah, we're back to the jazz and Dan and his jazz hands.
And remember, your service matters.